When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth?
He made the earth and the universe. He made the sun shining brightly. He made the animals in harmony. He made you and me, and we'll sing. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the King.
When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth? And continuing, he says, as obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former desires in your ignorance. See, because we tend to conform ourselves to what we desire. We choose our actions and our direction of our life based on what we desire. But do you desire that which is above more than that which is below? Where's your desire? Where's your heart? Where's your mind focused? What do you want? See, we're told to love our Elohim with all our desire, all our heart, mind, strength, spirit, etc. You can't do that if you desire other things more than you desire him. You got to be sober-minded, but we're not. We're drunk with desire. Some of us struggle with our weight. We're drunk with desire for certain foods that we know we shouldn't eat. Some of us struggle with all kinds of bad things, whether it's stuff that we're putting in our body or things that we're just doing. Some of us get drunken with, movies, or some of us get drunken with politics. So what do? We spend all of our time focused on that instead of on other things. Some of us get drunken. You see what I'm saying? It could be anything. Where do you spend? You know what? Where your actions are, so is your heart. Let's go backwards at it. Where your heart is, so is. Well, how about to go backwards? What do you spend most of your time doing? And when you're doing, because some of you say, well, most of my time I spend working. Okay, well, while you're working, where is your heart and your head? Where are you rather being? Are you rather being, I want you to picture, how many of you have seen Fiddler on the Roof? Okay, my favorite scene in the movie is the look on Ted.
Yeah.
I want to see that dance too and hear that song. Let me know when you're on. We're on? All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, if you'll all rise, we'll begin with the sounding of the shofar. And space is tight today. Very tight. Amen. Amen. And just in case, because we have some people have asked, you see, there is no mouthpiece jammed in the end there. There you go. Because sometimes they see my hand so close and nothing up my sleeves. No. All right, let's go ahead and sing praises to our King.
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom Alechem. Eveinu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall live in peace. Shalom, 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 Shalom Yerushalayim. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. 6 days of the week, anticipate and see the first of his feast. It is Shabbat. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. It was given as a sign to his people for all time. Yes, a covenantal sign. It is Shabbat. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. We came into the world to remember and observe, to honor and delight. It is Shabbat. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Thank Yahweh. It is Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, salvation comes, and his reward is with him. Behold, Yeshua comes. Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, salvation comes, and his reward is with him. Behold, Yeshua comes. Mashiach you will know. Shalom, shalom, Jerusalem. Peace be to you. When Messiah comes to take us home, may his praise be found in you. Shalom, shalom, Jerusalem. Peace be to you. When Messiah comes to take us home, may his praise be found in you. May his praise be found in you. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. Blessed is he who comes. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, who comes in the name
Amen. Amen. Father, we come before you on this, your Sabbath day, just so blessed and rejoicing in you that you would think enough about your creation, that at the very beginning, that you would plan to have a day that you knew we would need, a day that we could put aside all of our concerns and the cares of this world, a day to be restored and refreshed in you, a day to rest from all of these other things, to be rejuvenated and to be spending our time with you as we rejoice and appreciate the many, many blessings you give us, including this day, Shabbat. Father, we thank you for the love, for the interventions, for the miracles, for all the things you do for us. And we come to meet with you in great anticipation of what you would have for us today, knowing that this is one of your commanded assemblies where you would meet with your children. So, Father, we ask now that you would be with us, guiding, leading all things, that all things would be done to your glory and honor as we come before you now in the authority of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right, you may be seated. Okay, so just, mute. There you go. Good. We good? You're unplugging over there anyway? No, Stephen's good. He just had him hit all the mute buttons, so we should be good. All right. Well, again, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Awesome. You know, it's good to see that no matter if we move around or change locations or whatever we do, you guys somehow manage to find us. Like, it must be the breadcrumbs you leave or something, you know. It's going to get a little tough over the next couple of weeks because we're going to be here today. We're going to be in a different location next week. Then we'll be back here again. Then we'll be back over there again. It's going to just be one of those crazy things. But here's the good news as we go into prayer time. We have our building in contract. So I thought I'd start off with that big praise because this is the time in our tradition here at Beth Shalom and MTOI where we take up the prayer and praise reports within the body. And so I thought I would just start us off by saying that we have an engineer and pest control and other things, reports being generated on Monday. And then we have to wait on, all we have to wait on then, the bank's already told us we're pretty good to go. We just got to wait on an appraisal and everything going well. We should have something in the next couple of weeks to 30 days or whatever it takes. It's really at the mercy of the appraiser taking his time or her time or whatever that is. But so I don't know at what point we'll have the building. We did ask if we could use it until they said no. So, but if we can close before trumpets, maybe we can use it for trumpets and atonement, that kind of thing. So for right now, we're going to either be here or at Chat State. So, and I'll announce that more during the announcements, but so you'll just have to make sure, especially on the live stream, if you're planning to visit and you guys here, make sure you pay strong attention as to where we're going to be when. All right? Israel had to do this too, but they just looked up to see where the cloud was going. Okay? I have a feeling there's going to be a pillar of cloud or something hovering over my van. Make it a little easier. We'll just put like this, I don't know, holographic projection over the van. Sometimes the way things have gone over the past, I thought there was a different type of cloud hovering over the van. But Abba's been very good, and he's been blessing us, and so we're very excited about this. So let's continue to pray for this to successfully continue and close. I mean, we have this building. It's on Dalton Pike over in Cleveland, southeast Cleveland, and it will be an MTOI property, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. So, all right, amen. All right, so for all of you that have been contributing to the building fund, we appreciate that. That's going to pretty much take care of almost all of the down payment on it, so that's going to be good. And then we'll add a little bit more on top of that from the general fund. And but that doesn't mean we don't have building needs for those of you that have been sending money for building and stuff, because we're still going to have to renovate this thing and make it look like a congregation building and put some signage up and other things that are, so we appreciate that. Okay, so that's our big praise, is that at least by the time we get to Sukkot, we'll have our own building, and we'll be able to meet in it when we get back from Sukkot, and maybe even sooner. So the prayer is that we can get this thing closed by, let's see, whatever Friday is before Trump is the 7th. So we'd like to close by the 7th if we can. Then we can use it maybe on the 8th, but certainly for trumpets on the 10th. and that would be really nice. It won't be really set up for what we need permanently, but at least we can move some stuff in there and get some things done. And we could have services over there. Hopefully that would work out great. I don't know yet what the internet situation is there and how fast we can get that to go quickly, but it wasn't quite where we wanted it to be when we were first there. So that may take a little while, but we'll get this worked out. Anyway, so if you've got a praise or prayer here in a local congregation, Daweed's got the mic and he'll be bringing it around. If you're on live stream, Robert's manning the live stream desk, and so he'll be doing the adminning there. We do ask that you keep the backstories to a minimum and that we're only taking the mic for the big things, okay? Because after all, I think every one of us, if we wanted to, could take the mic for small things. I mean, every week, right? Certainly we could do that. So especially if you're on live stream, realize that Robert may clump together things that are very similar, maybe some similar job requests or health requests that are not extreme or urgent, but everybody's struggling with their finances and other things. So whatever it is, we can lump it together. Please realize that the Father doesn't mind that we lump them together. He looks at every one of ours individually, and whether we read it out loud or not is not going to affect whether or not it's answered or heard or responded to. Our Father hears them all. Amen? Okay. Now on live stream, also we're going to ask that you guys do me a favor, and actually more than that, do Robert a favor and behave this week. I know it's very hard. We get a lot of new people that come on there, and it's hard to understand and remember that this is an MTOI Beth Shalom Congregational service to which you are attending virtually. This is not an open forum for discussion. This is not something for promoting whatever you want to promote. This is actually, please be respectful. And that's a big part of what we see in Scripture, understanding how to be respectful and honoring of those in authority and things that are going on, and your brothers and your sisters. And so this is to be treated as if you were here. So if you wouldn't do it if you were here live, you certainly shouldn't be doing it on the chat, and that would make life a lot easier, because I know that we've had a few weeks where it's gotten a little bit crazy. So let's try to behave with that. Also, if it does start to get a little out of hand, let the admins take care of it. I know we got Kurt on there as well as Robert doing double duty. So, let's just help them as best we can. That also means during certain times of the service, we'll ask you to not be typing, and they're going to put in a little pasted-in thing that asks you not to do that during the teaching time, etc. There will be time after the teaching to ask questions, all right? But we will be asking for that. Okay, so we'll begin with Shira. Go ahead.
I know you've heard me mention this, all of you, over and over, but today is finally the day. My dear mother in New Hampshire is 100 years old.
Oh, amen. Amen. Okay, Deirdre?
Big praise to Abba. The meeting that my husband and I had with Rabbi went amazingly. And two awesome things that he said. One was that he considers himself, even though he does not go to the congregation yet, he considers himself a part of Rabbi's flock.
Oh, your husband, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me just say this. Some of you that have non-covenanted spouses, and I like that a lot better than saying non-believing. They believe, they just believe in something different than you do. That doesn't, we shouldn't mock that or judge that. They just don't believe in the same thing you do. But if you could get them to interact on a level where they could at least respect some leadership, that's a good starting point, especially in helping a marriage to work through some things and what they need to do. And actually, what they called me about was not something necessarily that they were with each other having an issue, but just something that he needed help with. And it was amazing that he would come and ask for help with that, and that he respected that. And so that was really good.
Well, the second part, and you were there for this, Rabbi. The second part was, Rabbi was just joking around with him saying, so when are you going to come? And the amazing thing is, he said, soon.
He did say soon, yep.
So I'm very, very happy. Praise Abba.
Amen. And my small praise in that is that while we're having all of this, Alice had woken up from a nap, and she walked over and climbed in my lap. That was really sweet. She sat there for quite a little bit, and that was just very sweet. So, so she knows who I am now, and so we got that relationship. So that's very good. All right, who's next? Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I would like to ask prayer for my brother Dan. He was in the hospital and he had to have a kidney stone surgically removed. And after that, he got a bad infection. His blood turned septic. He's home now, but it's a slow recovery. And I hope and pray that this episode that he went through may produce a change in his life. You never know. Also, I want to give some praise. We got to keep Charlie and Rose in our prayers. She told me that the fires out west are about 10 miles from their house and slowly moving toward their house. But so far, she's okay, and she's hoping that the fire crews can contain the fire.
Is it Montana?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the Yak,
Yeah,
Montana.
yeah.
I want to pray again for our South African brethren.
Absolutely. Okay, the mic's coming around. Careful. Okay, Stephanie?
Oh, he turned it on for me. Certainly for Julie, I'd like prayer for Julie as leading the YM2I team as we are continuing to work on the curriculum for Sukkot, as well as wrapping up this year for Parsha Pearls and just all that we are trying to do, certainly to honor the Father that we do. Just that we do it justice. I mean, it's she always is shooting pretty high, and it's all of us are trying real hard to be able to provide a good program for the kids.
Amen.
And so we're very excited, but it's a lot of work, and we need a lot of inspiration right now.
Amen. You know, a lot of you don't realize this, but the YM2I feast programs take almost the entire time between feasts to be prepared for the next feast. And, you know, a lot of people think, well, we're just going to keep our kids entertained, or we're going to just, no, we actually have an incredible program we put together for them. And I just finished yesterday running a lot of the paperwork to get everything finally, you know, kind of caught up on the feast. And we've got, it looks like about 70 children in the YM2I program this year. And that's not everybody that's still is sending in their paperwork. And, you know, in the Katan, we've got almost 40 just between age 5 and 12. So, and we may break that up into 3 classes just to make it work because there's so many, okay? Because when I showed my wife the list this morning, I had broken it up into 3 classes of 12 or 13 each. I mean, that's how big each one was. And so, you know, we will have like between 5 and 7, and then 8 to 10, and then 11 and 12. And there's about 12 of them in each. I mean, that's a big classes. And we're not done with people registering. We're at about 270 to 280 on the registrations. But I am missing some out of that list. So we probably are closer to 300. But anyway, just keep that all in prayer as we put this together, as well as for the fact that we're also trying to juggle a schedule. You know, we have a lot of days, but somehow that time fills up very quickly. And I've also got Curtis Reed coming. And Curtis is going to, you know, be sharing some things as well. And so I got to figure out where to put everything and how to fit everything in. So we'll be working on that. And I also have to now talk to the property about another classroom if we're going to have an extra class, breaking the kids into smaller groups. So we'll keep that all in prayer. Appreciate that. Nate?
Just a praise report. I think it's been 6 weeks now that we've been here. And I'm not surprised that when her and her husband sat down and talked with Rabbi that things really got worked out. Because we've had our ups and downs since we got here, but it has been a tremendous blessing to have fellowship again. And so I wanted to say to our friends up in New York, the Navarrete family and the Diltz family, we're sorry that we're not there. We haven't forgotten you. We love you guys. We would love for y'all to come down this way.
Simple solution. Pack it up and let's go.
Amen. 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 But we wouldn't come back. We like where we live, but we wouldn't go back there now. We've seen things here. Everything that we enjoyed throughout our life is here now. We find
Awesome.
it. We're like, wow, this is we had this. So prayer request for those at my work, employees, and those that I've had the privilege to take care of, that would hear some of the truth that, you know, because they would ask questions. These little Tassels are amazing, Abba, thank you. But they seem very interested in wanting to hear more, but just prayer that Abba would open their mind, open their ears, heart, mind, and all that.
Amen.
And yes, amen. That's it.
Amen. Thank you. All right, so for all of you out there, the men specifically, who are always wanting excuses to try to share what you, and I'm not, I don't promote evangelizing in sort of the Christian sort of way, but if you want to spark a conversation, stop being so embarrassed and afraid to wear your seat. Great conversation opener. Hey, what's that hanging from your clothes? Okay? Now, I have to tell you, in my case, I probably have had that conversation less than 5 times in 20 years. People just don't ask me for whatever reason. But I know a lot of you get asked on a regular basis. So, if you have wanted to have that question asked, and so you could have a conversation. But just bear in mind, I just want to caution all of you that just because someone asks the question doesn't mean they're interested. It just might mean they're curious. And so be careful that you don't just vomit everything you know with them because they asked one question. That's my prayer request. Don't do that. Okay? Answer their question and see if they want to ask another one. Let them lead. I know it's hard sometimes because you think, oh, it got me one, and you want to reel them in. You already got a place for them on the wall at home in your mind. You really? Okay. Okay? Let's not do that. Okay? Because I have found that the few times when they ask, I mention something along the lines of, well, in the Bible where it talks about, and they've already shut down. I don't even get to finish the sentence. I can see they're just waiting for me to stop moving my mouth so they can end the conversation. Okay? Which I do fairly quickly. But, I normally will go to the woman with the issue of blood if I know the person's Christian before I'll go to Numbers 15, and then I'll connect the two. From Matthew to Numbers. But as soon as I say, well, in the Bible where, and then, So let them lead, and you never know, but just let them lead. Okay, where's the mic? Okay, Zarek?
One, praise, it's good to be back for a little bit. As my work. And then just prayer as I'm going through the different careers that I have. On the military side, unfortunately, they're liking that I'm doing stuff right, and so they're wanting to keep sending me to these classes where I have to do more and more paperwork that I hate doing. But the long-term goal...
You poor yellow.
I know.
Paperwork, drudgery.
Yeah. They have found ways to fish me in, though. Like, do you want to go to a machine gun class? Yeah? Wait. I'm just being the grader while they get to do... That's not what I wanted to do. The long-term goal being that we have a lot of significantly high-ranking people that are getting ready to retire out, and I'm finding out to the wonderful lower enlisted grapevine that the reason why I'm going to all these classes is because they want me to fill some of those slots, which comes with nice full-time pay, and I don't come in on the weekends and better benefits and all that. But as well as I just found out with Volkswagen, now that I've converted over, I have to do more paperwork when I go on military leave. So
that's all right.
It's just
Listen,
everything gets juggled. I hope I can keep it straight.
Look, for every blessing, that we talked about this during the reward part of the Are You Saved teaching, it comes from the effort. And the effort not just of being good at your job, but you got to have to do the parts you don't like as well. All right? In everything that we do, there's parts we don't like. And that's the parts that make all the difference, is how well you deal with the stuff you don't like and can get through it. So we'll keep you in prayer because we'd be excited for you on either side and how you get promoted and things can work out so you can have that stability there. Awesome. Where's the mic? Okay, Renee?
Yesterday, we went to lunch and said, we don't eat pork. So we want to make sure that you understand. We don't want that on, anything from the menu that has that. She said, I don't either. As a matter of fact, I don't eat bacon. I don't eat pork chops. She went down the whole list, and we were like, really? Is it because of your faith? She said, well, I got out of the church. My parents are not real happy with me. So we just let it go, like you said. And she come back for more questions, asking about idols and different things. So just our witness can be what we don't do.
Amen.
And it was a blessing.
And that's when you take out the MTOI card and hand it to them.
We did. We certainly did. And
There
she's
you
coming
go.
next week.
There you go. That's why we put those cards in the back there, by the way. They're not because you guys need the contact info. You already know how to reach us, but so that you can give them away. All right, Robert's got a stack of cards there, and so do I. You can give out either one. The information's all the same except the name on it. The phone numbers are the same. The name and email addresses are the only things that are different. But, have a few of those to give away. Just take what you need and give them away. Michelle.
Hi, I wanted to, first I want to give some praise for Abba. You make me stand up? Darn it. Okay. Wanted to give praise for getting in touch with some sisters that are a wealth of knowledge in natural homeopath. And I got a lot of advice that we've given my dad. Prayer that he has surgery on Tuesday. And they're going to replace some more stents, and while they're in there, they're going to, peek around. So they keep removing tumors, and so we're really praying that they won't find any this time.
Amen. We certainly can pray for that. Okay, anybody else? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
I just want to add praise as far as our witness. I was reminded of a lady that came into work this week, and she was telling me all her ailments and everything. And I asked, she was new in the area, and I asked her if she was plugged into a community, and she asked me what I meant. And I says, well, there's this community and the SDA community and the Messianic, and she goes, oh, that type of community. And I was like, well, just with people, because she was telling me how alone she was, and she was telling me how she was seeking truth, and I says, oh. And she goes, so what community are you connected to? And I told her, well, the Messianic. And she started going off on that, and I says, yeah, I don't believe in that Elohim. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I says, well, I believe in Yeshua. And then she walked away, and she came back, and she goes, well, what's the difference between the two? And so I pretty much told her, I says, well, Jesus is the one who done away with the law, and everything is forgiven. And I says, Yeshua, you obey the law. And she goes, I just want to know the truth. And I says, well, if you really want to know the truth, and I wrote down your name, and I wrote down your website, and I says, well, here, if you really want to know the truth. And then
Appreciate
she walked
that.
away. So, that it's easier that way, because then there's no stress on us of feeling like we have to witness to them. And
Amen. Now listen, the thing is not the thing is not about information. People say they want to know the truth. They're saying, I want information that's truth. They don't necessarily want a relationship with the truth. Okay, so when you read in John 8, when it says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, well, it's the relationship with the truth that makes you free, that sets you free. It's not just the information, right? And so just remember that when people say, well, I just want the truth, well, so then I can know what it is, so I can then choose if I like it or not. They want to know what it is. They don't want to have a relationship with it. They want to be able to choose after you tell them what the truth is, whether they like it. And then they can decide whether or not they want to embrace that particular truth. And that's part of the problem where we have the people actually not only having strong delusion, but actually liking it. Preferring the delusion over the truth. And that's tough. It's hard. So just realize when people say to you, hey, well, listen, I just want to know the truth. I've had people have those conversations with me. I said, if you really want to, we'll test that theory. You just want the truth? We'll see how that goes. Because just like in that movie, they can't handle the truth. Okay? Because they really don't want a relationship with it. All right, where's the mic? All right, Mr. Steve.
This is a praise report about prayer.
Go ahead and stand up.
About the beginning of the year, I started concentrating in prayer on being thankful, counting your blessings and everything. So for my customers and, my family and my biological family, everything that touches my life. And I started seeing a difference right away, but something happened last week that really stood out. Got a call to go to the Signal Mountain and Rekey a house, and the lady had about 7 doors she wanted worked on, so we started doing the work, and come to find out she's a concert violinist. And she followed me to every door playing beautiful violin music. And so it's the first time I ever put on a lock doing the Irish jig.
There you go. You could have made it a music-activated lock. You got to play the right tune, and it unlocks the... Okay, Bailey?
Okay, so I have a praise. The past 3 months I've been battling out with my work to get this position, and they kind of made it a problem because I couldn't work Saturdays, and they just felt like I couldn't sell enough. And so the past 2 weeks I've been on the top 5 out of the whole company as far as my sales goes, and yesterday morning I was offered a promotion.
Yay!
I'm so excited, sorry. Which includes benefits, a pay raise, just a whole lot of good things.
Awesome.
Sorry, I'm so excited. And also, this sweet man, his birthday is Monday, so I just want to thank Abba for him.
All right. Happy birthday, Austin. All right. Awesome. Okay, and let me interrupt before my wife speaks. Let that be a really big deal to you to get the impression from, if you shine, they will do whatever they need to keep you, to promote you. Remember what I've said over and over again. If you're Torah observant and you're in a company, they should see that your value exceeds any inconvenience of feast days and Sabbaths and that kind of thing. And that's what Bailey did, is she said, well, if I can outshine everybody, they'll have to... What choice do they have? Because they're saying that my sales. Look, one of the first times I got an impression about this, we had a small Bible study in Atlanta, and a couple of ladies came to it who were realtors, and they were top producers, never doing home sales or showings on Saturday, which in real estate is kind of like a what, But if you can produce, that's all that matters, right? And so whatever your job requires, if you become that that invaluable employee, that top producer, that top reliable, high integrity, whatever, they'll do anything to keep you, because ultimately smart people somewhere up the line of the company are going to realize how hard it is to get people like that. It's not hard to get employees, it's hard to get good ones. Just like it's hard to find a good job, well, it's even harder to find good employees. And so good job on you, Bailey, for that. And so you deserved it because you did what you needed to do. So I just want to let that be a lesson to everybody. Take her example. If you're sitting there kind of doing the minimum at your job and whining all the time, don't be surprised why they don't want to bend over backwards to make your life easier. Okay, but if you're the guy that they realize they can't do without, or the woman they can't do without because of your work ethic and your work effort, they'll do anything to keep you. Okay? Because I learned that early on in my career, is that top producers make their own rules. Okay, especially if you're in a production job where you have to do sales and that kind of thing, top producers can do whatever they want because they need you. Okay, so that's why I always aimed to be a top producer wherever I was, because then I knew if I needed something from them, I was going to probably get it because they were not going to mess with a top producer. Okay, and so she showed herself to be in the top 5 in the whole company. That's a top producer. That was the kind of people that you want to say, whatever you need, we're going to make you happy, we want you to stay, because she could go somewhere else and do similar things for another company just as easily, Okay, Rebitz and Julie?
Okay, I wasn't going to share this, but because a lot of comments came up about wearing tzitzit and the witness, Stephen and I were at Verizon this week, and one of the gentlemen that works there had asked Stephen about his tzitziot, and my normal inclination as a mom is to step in and, answer, and I thought, you know what? And I physically just pushed my chair back, and I let him answer, and I was so proud of him. He answered in a way that was better than I would have answered. So that's my praise.
That's my boy. That's my boy. Good job, Stephen. All right. Dawid, go ahead.
Sorry to somebody else that's in line. I just wanted to say that basically I've experienced some of the same things. As a matter of fact, I experienced that Yom Shishi.
Turn, face, yeah, or get away from the speaker.
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. Sorry for the camera. But anyway, so I recently got an email from somebody that I've had a back and forth with him. He's on my phone as basically the Amazon evangelist. And he came on and he was asking, all kinds of stuff about, in this email that he recently sent this last Yom Shishi, or Friday, he basically said, okay, is there something that I need to know about, is it going to hinder my salvation, calling on the name of Jesus Christ, or And I'm like, and in other subjects, and I'm like, okay, let me hook you up with these various teachings, and I tried to sort of cursorily explain, but I realized, you know what, just send him the teachings. It's not really going to work that way. Because he started coming up with some of the typical Christian rebuttals, and I'm just like, okay, never mind. I'm going to send you the teachings, and you go from there.
Good job. Look, let me just remind you again. I know I say this over and over again. Even I don't mean that like in a condescending way, but even I, meaning they're already my teachings, right? Even I, who could answer the question, will not answer people's questions if there's a teaching. I will send them to the teaching. If I would do that, why wouldn't you? I mean, if I'm not going to try to answer the question, why would you? I mean, if it's something that you feel like it's a complicated enough question, that probably the teaching would do a better job. I always, Robert will tell you that, my wife will tell you that, anybody's heard me on the phone, I will send them to the teaching and say, if you still have any questions, give me a call. Okay? Now, it's something simple, obviously, you go ahead and answer it and that kind of thing, or someone asks you about your CC, but if there's something like him asking these questions that are going to need a much deeper, complex answer, especially when it's going to totally deal with paradigms that the person's not had shifted yet, okay, let the teachings do that, all right, because they do it very thoroughly, verse by verse, and all that other stuff. So I'm just, again, encouraging you that, I could obviously answer the questions, because, it's the same information as the teaching, but if it took me, 8 parts to do it, then why would I think 8 minutes is going to do the same as 8 hours, okay? Or in the salvation thing, it was 17 parts, So let the teachings do the heavy lifting. Even I do that. It's like, here, go listen to that first. You know what? A lot of them will call me back and say, thanks, that worked, or send me an email. Or they'll never call back again because they didn't like it or whatever it was. But at least it dealt with it without fighting or arguing or whatever. It's a lot easier. Okay, who's next? Okay, Christina.
And for the record, I tried to catch you when you were over here, but you're too quick. Just want to let everybody know I am 28 weeks now, which I'm told means I'm in the 3rd trimester. And everything's good. Praise Abba. Got lots of movement, lots of good heartbeat listening. No, never mind. Yeah, I'm good. I just want to let everybody know everything's good.
Amen. Now, Caleb, why couldn't you raise your hand when Nate had the mic?
We need to get some exercise.
No, he needs his exercise. I do.
All right, so I know everybody knows that I've been trying to move out here for a while, and I've been every other week driving to Chattanooga, 3 hours, and I drive a lot for my company, so it's a blessing. We finally got moved out here, and
hey.
And I know it's been a big change. So it's been being away from the congregation, away from the family. Coming here, you know how important family is, and it's created such a it's been a big change in my relationship with my wife. So it takes so much strain off when you have family, and we're really blessed to have her parents to help out so much. And another praise is I got moved out here for my company allowed me to move out here and take over this area, and I just got a message from my boss at the beginning of this week, and he's giving me another pay raise. So that's really awesome. I'll tell you that.
All right, good, because you have to help us keep up the 2 families per month moving here thing, And by the way, keep the Carmonas in prayer. They're going to be driving here tomorrow. Okay, the truck is leaving early in the morning with all their stuff. I think David has their key ready to go, and he'll meet them over at the place. And so they should be here by 9, 10, 11 o'clock tomorrow night, however, based on how long it takes them to get here. So keep them in prayer. So that's another family that'll be here officially and moved in after this weekend. So that'll be great. Okay, where are we? Okay, Michael.
Shabbat Shalom Messianic.
Shabbat Shalom.
I am so blessed to have my mom and my dad with me.
Awesome.
They traveled over 400 miles to be with me this weekend, and they doing the Shabbat with me. I'm so blessed.
Awesome.
And I just want to keep y'all have an unspoken prayer request, so keep me in prayer.
Okay, amen. And let's make sure to make them feel extra welcome. All right. And your parents are doing something mine wouldn't do. You will not see them every year on Shabbat. They just won't do it. That's probably because the one time they did do it back when we had the congregation in Nashville, everybody tried to convert them. And I told them to leave them alone, and they wouldn't. So anyway, so they won't do it ever again. Now, we don't do that. But that was an overzealous group we had back then. Okay. Where's the mic? Robert.
All right, from Lev Mashiach. Microsurgery went well, and they're home, and he's healing, but he's still cranky, so keep him in prayer. The Herschlers need to be continued in prayer as Vincent battles liver cancer, and they're also asking that we continue to remember Jessa as they press deeper on her, into her heart issues with more tests, asking Abba for direction for both them and the doctors that they'll get the right test and a solution. From a praise that Kate's second brain surgery went well Tuesday, but continue to pray for her because she took a turn for the worse last night. So, Joshua Strawn said that he regrets he was not able to make it to services the last few weeks because his boss was being very difficult. However, the issue has now been resolved, and he will no longer be having any interference from work for Shabbat. So,
awesome.
From Janice Schreiber, please continue to pray for Yanni as she continues her journey for complete healing. Samia Egan offers a great praise to Yahweh. She actually completed chemotherapy earlier than expected.
Amen. Just let me throw this out there. So Samia was doing, as you know, this routine with it, and they called me a couple of end of last week to say, we just found out that there's supposed to be 3 more sessions, with the last one being on Shabbat. I said, well, when you get there, just ask them, because it's almost finished. It doesn't really matter. Can we move it to Sunday or Monday? Well, better than that, they were just told they were done. So they didn't even. So that was even. It's a great praise. See, so sometimes Abba's already got the solution worked out before you even realize there's a problem. Okay, because they went in there for the first of the 3, and when they were done, they said, you're done. And they didn't have to do the last 2, so that was great. But just realize, again, somebody may have that situation, be like, what about Shabbat? Well, notice that also they didn't find out that it was worked out until they'd already committed not to really do it on Shabbat. They were going to go ask to have it moved and figure out what they needed to do. Sometimes things don't get fixed until you make a commitment first. And so that was really just a good praise, so appreciate that. Next.
Tim and Rose Funk asked that we continue to pray for Samantha. Also, she is seeing the doctor soon for what they're going to do about her heart issues. From MTOI Lakeview, a lot of illness going on and injuries, and Gary asked for strength to be able to balance school and work and family. We know him as Richard Mugicha Wycliffe, offers praise to Abba for the protection while he remains on his trip to China. Anna Tripp asked gives a praise report. Her fiance received a pretty gnarly head wound, and they were sure that it was going to be quite a while in the healing, but Abba answered their prayers, and 3 days later it was healed. So,
amen.
Crystal McGee asked prayers for peace, and as they go through, she goes through a lot of stuff at her new job. She's being blatantly discriminated against because of her following Shabbat. Gene Mergel says praise for himself and Chris Ann They just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary yesterday.
Oh, man.
They're up in northern Michigan where they spent their honeymoon.
Oh, okay.
Robert
okay,
Wyatt.
so see that, sweetheart, when we get to our 50th, was that 50th?
Yep.
When we get to our 50th, we'll go back to Hawaii, okay? We'll be like 102 at that point, but you know. Okay, so we got married late. All right, go ahead. Well, I'll be 102. She'll still be like 70-something, you know, so. I got to do that quick recover right there, you know.
Robert and Tamara asked prayer for their neighbor. They passed out in the driveway yesterday from complications from diabetes. He has two infants, or he had two infants buckled in the car, and they don't know how long they were in the car before he was found. Also pray for Jeff Green. He has some kind of internal problem going on right now. They can't really find a definition. His legs are breaking out in blisters that are a result of Agent Orange or other chemicals that he was exposed to in Southwest Asia during his service. So please pray for him as it's kind of driving him up a wall. And there are several for different occupational things and more prayer requests for healings and illnesses, as well as family that needs to come to the knowledge of the truth. And that's it for the most part from the live stream.
Okay, amen. All right, so the only thing I would wrap up and add, Representative Joanne, go ahead. Okay.
Very quickly, I would like to ask for prayer for Yanni because she put a post on there this morning. She went home. She was home for 6 hours. Tonight, she has to go to a different hospital because they're going to put a pacemaker in her. So I'd just like to ask for prayer for her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And who is the other one? Michelle. Michelle, okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more praise. Jordan, is in California, and she's spending Shabbat with my parents last night and today, and she led them through Kaddish and Motzi last night, and I know they're watching, so hello, I love you.
Okay, amen. Amen. Okay, so let me just add a couple of things real quickly. One is, of course, we want to continue to pray for all the people that have called the ministry this week. And there, just also keep, myself, Robert, and Rabbi Tom, et cetera, keep us in prayer because we are hitting maximum capacity. We're going to probably need to increase staff at some point and having the right people come up and be able to get involved, especially once we get the new building and work that out because it's, people have joked and said, well, I don't know why we got to put any money in that box. Rabbi only works a couple hours on Saturday. Well, just because I wake up at 11 doesn't mean that I didn't, go to bed at like 3 in the morning, okay? So, and I'm working all that time. So, and Robert gets all those calls, and there's a couple of times when he's had to be away that I've had to take all those calls, and I remember just how much calls that is, And so we are hitting, so keep us in prayer as we are not only getting through all of this, and we're on the short window of like 30, a little over 30 days to Sukkot. And so that doesn't give us a lot of time to get a lot of things done that have to get done. And also for me, I don't talk about it very often, but I do have a fairly serious case of, ADD or ADHD over the years. And it doesn't bother me as much, all the time. But there are times where to sit at my desk is brutally hard to do, especially if it's not just moving a lot of stuff around, but it's actually sitting and concentrating to write teachings. Okay, that's the hardest thing. Look, I took English 1 5 times in college. Not because I couldn't pass the class. English 1 is a writing class, and I had to write I don't know, I think it was 5 different projects you had to do. So guess what? Each time I did one project and took the class again until I handed all 5 in. Because I could only get 1 done per semester, more or less, and try to take the class again. So that's why when you see my notes, there's a reason why it's just a list of verses. If I had to actually write it out, we would never get a sermon. My mother thought it was funny when I got into ministry. She said, "Oh yeah, the way you like to write papers, and now you got to write one every week." I said, "Nope. I'm making an outline, and that's all I got, because if I had to write it out, it would never get done." And that's part of why you guys don't get the email responses you might want that need long written things. I don't write. Okay, because that means I have to think linearly on paper or in an email, and that is one of the hardest things for my ADD brain to do. So when it comes to putting a teaching together, it's once we get started and on a roll, like 17 parts or something, yeah, I'm on a roll and I can kind of flow that thing. But starting a new one from scratch and kind of having to figure out where it needs to go and letting the Father lead that whole thing and sitting there in front of the machine. So I've got, a bunch of stuff to do for the next couple of weeks and the 2 or 3 that I need for Sukkot. Okay, of course, you guys all know the tradition is that Abba News doesn't tell me what I'm doing at a feast until I get there, but I'm hopeful it'll be different this time. I'm very prayerful that won't happen again. Okay? Millennium and Kingdom Part 4 might be that, but it may be that I need to redo the thing because the whole series is so old that it needs to be redone. So I may do the Millennium and Kingdom, and you'll get Part 4 this time. But I'm trying to redo those really older teachings anyway. So I may need to redo that one and then continue it into Part 4. Okay? Huh? The Millennium Kingdom is only 2 years old? When did I do? No, it's longer than that, isn't it? Somebody look it up. The Millennium Kingdom I did at Sukkot too. It was in Dandridge? All right. Don't argue. See, that's the problem. I'm burned out. Listen, that's also a big problem in ministry, and if you've never been there, you wouldn't know, but you can hit burnout real fast. And so that's why today I'm not teaching. So we're going to have Rabbi Tom teach, and I'm very blessed to have him teach today, because putting something together after finishing Are You Saved, it wasn't happening this week. So anyway, but just keep me in prayer for that stuff, because this is a ministry. This is why I understand now why Yeshua would go off on his own on a regular basis and get away from everybody for like all day or for a couple of days, and all of a sudden he'd show up again. And it's just the constant pulling out of you, and I don't mind it, but it leaves you at some points empty, and there's like, okay, I don't have anything to draw from. Okay, so keep that in prayer. Also, my throat. I've been doing so much counseling and so much teaching and so much everything over the last couple of months that I do have a functional vocal problem that I'm not supposed to be. No excessive talking, loud talking, yelling, or singing. That's my life. How do I do that? Anyway, so just keep all that in prayer, and that all things will be worked out, and that the planning and all the other things for Sukkot will work out. All right. So what I want to do is, instead of praying now, I'm going to have Dawid come up and do the Mourner's Kaddish, and then we'll pray for all the prayer stuff after he does Kaddish. Okay? I guess you'll do it off the screen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
I can also do this, but we can move that out of the way for Rabbi Tom if you want.
No, this will be fine, but do you want to do the prayer for all the prayer requests at the end? Just pass me the mic.
I feel more comfortable passing you the mic.
Okay, so I'll just stay here.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. So, just let you know if you're mourning the loss of a loved one, they should stand.
Yes. Yeah, if you are indeed mourning the loss of a loved one, you do need to stand. And if you want to stand in solidarity with those that are mourning, then you are also welcome to stand. And I'll be changing up the tune a little bit, so please don't get thrown too much. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divra chiruteh V'yamlich malchuteh V'yatzmach purkaneh V'karev mishicheh בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. Glorified and sanctified be God's great name throughout the world which he has created according to his will. Amen. May he establish his kingdom in your lifetime and during your days, and within the life of the entire house of Yisrael, speedily and soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. Beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Yisrael, and say, Amen. He who makes peace in his high heavens, may he make peace for us and for all Yisrael, and say, Amen.
Amen. Father, we come before you, and Father, we ask a special comfort and consolation on all those that are mourning the loss of a loved one, that, Father, you would pour forth upon them the shalom, the peace that goes beyond understanding that can only come from you, that, Father, you would hold them close as they go through their grieving process, and that you would give them the encouragement in your mercy and your compassion and your love that they need to go through this terribly hard time. Father, we also ask that you would accept all of our praises and that, Father, that you would hear our thanks and our appreciation for all the things that you do, small and great, in our lives, as well as allowing us the opportunity to come before your throne with our cares and our concerns and our needs. Father, we come to you believing and knowing that you do answer prayer, and appreciating so much that we can come before your throne and share with you what's on our heart. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you. We ask all things in the name of Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right, you can all rise for the liturgy. And I do want to say one other thing as we go into the liturgy. I want to appreciate that this man right here made the effort to learn the Ashkenazi version of the Mourner's Kaddish. For me, that was appreciate that. Thank you. Well, but I'm just, because you got to know that shows a certain level of submission, because, he comes here with a Sephardi sort of background, and to be willing to, make that shift, which is not, necessarily an easy thing to do when you're so used to doing something a certain way. And so anyway, so I appreciate that. Very good job. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach, Baruch Yahweh HaMevorach leolam vaed. Blessed is Yahweh, who is blessed, Blessed be Yahweh, who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, thy tabernacles, Yisrael. Ve'ani berov chazdecha avo betecha eshtachave el hechal kodshecha be'yiratecha. And in thy great compassion I will come into your house. There I will bow, there I will fear thy holiness, O Yah, O Yah. Shema. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Waed. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Amen. Ve'ahavta. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Amen. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Amen. Mi chamocha belim Yahweh, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot ose fele. Ose fele. Who is like you, Yahweh, among the gods? Who is like you, mighty in holiness? You are awesome in praise, doing wonders, Yahweh, doing wonders, Yahweh. Veshamru. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל בני ישראל אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה יהוה את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Together, and the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat to make the Shabbat throughout their generations an eternal covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever that in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the chuppah set up. And then once we do, the children will be able to go under there. Also for the Gadol class, you will be meeting in here today. You'll be getting to hear your teacher, Rabbi Tom, do the teaching he's doing today. Okay. You want to pass yours, Daweed, you want to pass yours this way? Rotate the whole thing, Daweed, rotate it this way. There we go. You got it? Okay, come this way. Just come towards me just a little bit so Daweed has a little bit of slack this way. Just a little bit. There we go. Good? All right, children, come on under. Now, Xander's already there. He's ready to go. Paul, you can step back. I was going to go grab Zarek's, but his father did. I will grab it.
Zovito Malkanu, our Father, our King, we come before you so thankful. Thankful for all that you have done for us, all that you will do for us, all that you're doing for us now. We just love you. We thank you. We come before you humbly now, more so than ever as we prepare our hearts for the fall feast, for your ingathering. And we just thank you for all that you are doing through this organization, for us as families through this organization, for the leadership, and for all that play their parts, that do their roles, whether it's the the big roles or the small roles, that we just thank you. We thank you for bringing us together to be becoming part of the body that's here to serve the body. And we just ask that our children see things in us that they want with their lives, and that you will lead them and pull them through their own walk, and that we as parents can allow that and trust in you in all things. And we just thank you and praise you. Amen.
You know, in watching the little children, a couple of them were reaching up for the covering. I hope they stay excited about the real covering as they do this one. Because they certainly are excited about this one. So, Abba, may they be as excited about you as they are about playing with the covering. Of course, at their age, at this point, the covering is much more real to them. They could just reach up there and play with it. How cool. All right, children, you're dismissed to your classes. Gadol class, you're staying right here. So Gadol class, go find your seats, get yourself situated. The rest of you may be seated. I said you could be seated. Yep, you missed it. It's all right. Excuse me. We could also continue to pray that I'll get this cough addressed someday. All right. Ha'ma'aseh v'hatrumah, the tithes and the offerings. We understand the purpose of tithing is to put Yahweh first in our lives, but also that we should appreciate his abundant blessings. Okay? We don't take up a formal offering here at the congregation. We do have the box in the back, but we do want to ask Abba to bless those that are taking full advantage of his system of, putting him first. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who commanded and made promises to us concerning the tithes and the offerings. May you open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that cannot be contained as we walk in these mitzvot and these commandments. Amen. Amen. All right, announcements. While I get Rabbi Tom situated here, we'll go through the announcements. Okay. So, let's go through the announcements fairly quickly here. All right, first and foremost, I've got to remind everyone that, actually, we're just doing the tithes and offerings. We just go quickly through. Don't forget, we're Amazon partners. We do have the ability for you to support the ministry without spending any additional money. If you simply go to the Amazon website, the M2I website, look for the Amazon link. Where's that slide, Stephen? Thank you. Okay, and so when you see the link like that, if it takes you to Amazon, not on Shabbat, of course, we're not doing any shopping on Shabbat, but that'll cause a referral fee to be given to us for referring you over there if you use our link to get there. Also, we're part of the Amazon Smile program, smile.amazon.com. You select MTOI as the group you want to donate to and serve and as a blessing while you're doing your shopping, and so that's a way that we can do that as well. Okay, I want to welcome our guests. So we do have a few guests today. Hopefully we'll make you welcome. All of us have an obligation to treat them all as family and help them to feel welcome. Today after services, we're going to have our oneg, our fellowship meal, so you're all welcome to stay for that. All right? Upcoming events. Okay, these are the things that we're getting going here on the calendar. All right, first of all, today after services, okay, before the baby shower, we could leave that up there. Okay, today after services, we're having a teacher meeting. So those of you that are, have volunteered to be a part of teaching the youth as part of the YM2I program, we do have a teacher meeting today. We'll be doing that during the ONEG. We'll have a little bit of a teacher meeting going on. Then tomorrow, of course, is the baby shower for Kirsten and Christina, and that's at noon. That's going to be over at the clubhouse at the retreat at Spring Creek. It's right off of 25th Street. It's on 25th Street off of Keith. That's better. It's a little bit too high. Okay, and so if you have any questions of any details, see my wife, and the Rebbitzin will give you what you need to know about that. Okay, then coming up, of course, is our weekly Torah study every Tuesday night. Okay, as we're going through the book of Deuteronomy now and closing out the cycle for the season of the Torah portions. And so that will be this Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. And so we look forward to seeing you there for that. And then, okay, so then we have our location changes and all kinds of things that are happening. So let me give you some of that information before I get to the general sessions and other meetings that are coming up into September. Okay, so first of all, we have this week coming up, we will be at Chattanooga State Community College. It's, so most of you just know it as Chat State, on Amnicola Highway. All right? So for those of you that don't know, if you want to quickly just write this down, okay? We're going to be going, the easiest way to get there is you're going to take 153, okay, which is exit 4 off of 75. You're going to take 153. You're going to get out at exit 6, which is the Amnicola Highway. Okay, make a left off the ramp there. You're going to go a little ways till you get to a light. That's the entrance to Chat State. Do not turn there. Go about another, 20 yards forward, another 50, 100 feet forward is another entrance, the second entrance. Go in that one. It's easy to miss. There's not big signage there. The big signage is by the light. Go to the second entrance, make a right, go on campus, and the very first parking lot on your right that you can get into, that's where you're going to go. It's the Erlanger Health Science Center. And so it's a big parking lot with a big building right in the center, right in the middle in front of you. Go right in that main center. There'll be a big fountain, and just keep going straight until you go past the fountain right into the main door, and the meeting room is straight in through that door. So you don't have to go anywhere. That's the first room right in there. It's known as the Berry Auditorium. But you know what? I've been to that room many times and never noticed it had a name. I just can tell you, you'll find us all. We'll be there already setting up. But it's the big auditorium straight in front when you first walk in the main doors. All right? Okay, we're also going to have several classrooms that are booked up for us so we can have the youth classes in the classroom. So we'll have rooms for that. Okay, so this is going to be at the Erlanger Health Science Center off of Amnicola Highway as part of Chattanooga State Community College. Okay, we're going to meet at the normal time. Okay, now the only thing that I'm concerned about is how we're going to do the ONEG. So we're just going to bring some tables and chairs, or what did you figure that out?
Tables right when you first walk in, just set the food right there, and then we're going to take it to the larger area when we actually set it out.
Off to the left when as you're walking in? No, I'm saying, but we're going to take it to what larger area? Over to the left if we're coming in the door, that area? Okay. All right, so we're going to try to figure this all out. They don't have a place for us really to eat. We don't want to mess up the classrooms and everything. Here they've given us permission to eat in the room. It's our first time using that place. We may need to use it again on September 8th, so we want to do a good job of being nice while we're there this time. So we'll have tables set up. There are outlets there. We'll be able to plug in, your crock pots and that kind of stuff. But let's do an extra good job of making sure that we handle any spillage, any messes. Let's see if we can bring some extra cleaning supplies in case we do anything like that so we can really take care of things. Okay, and did we find out what to do with garbage bags? No. Okay, maybe we can bring a pail. We can bring...
We can bring some. They have large trash cans, but I didn't ask about where to take them.
So. Okay, so why don't we just make sure we have bags in case? Okay, so or ask them where they have their bags. All right, because we want to make sure we are... they're not used to people coming in and eating. They normally have it catered if you're going to bring in food. But since we said we're not doing that kind of an event, we're just kind of having a potluck, they said that we could try it. So that would be okay. All right. So keep in mind that we're going to be there likely on the 8th as well. Okay, so we're going to be there on the 25th, and then we'll probably also be there on the 8th. We'll be back here on the 1st. So this is going to be like every other week we're going to be here now, then at Chat State, then back here, then at Chat State. So it's going to kind of rotate, all right? And then as far as trumpets and atonement, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. Robert and I are looking around. It's not easy to find, but we're hoping we might be able to get a closing before that and get that worked out. We're still looking for possibly like that hotel we used that one time off of Lee Highway, by Zaxby's and everything over there, that we used it a couple of months ago. So we may have to use that place if it's available. A little pricey, but it is what it is, okay? And so we'll try to see what we can do for trumpets and atonement, but just stay tuned. All right, so now that all being said, so now we get to trumpets and atonement. Okay, so trumpets is on September 10th. Atonement is on September 19th. Make sure you have those days off and allocated in your time. And then on the 16th, okay, I don't know where the general session slide went, but okay, so the Leadership Council's general session, all that stuff is going to be on September 16th. The slides are out of order. That's my fault. Okay, so on the 16th is when we're going to have all our meetings. That'll be right in between trumpets and atonement. That'll be our September meetings. And then, of course, Sukkot. Now you can kind of file your way forward to the Sukkot slide. There you go. September 23rd to October 2nd. The holy days are the 24th and the 1st. So if you want to know what days you need to have off of work in case you're not going to be able to come and do the whole thing with us, we're talking about September 24th and October 1st. We'd like you to be there on the 23rd because we're going to start that night with supper, and then that'll be when we'll begin and kick off the feast. And then we're going to end on the holy day, which is October 1st. We'd rather you not travel on the holy day and wait till Tuesday morning to leave. But if you have to leave, Monday night, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. Just try to wait until the end of, till sundown to do that. Okay. I think that covers it for the announcements. Just want to make sure that I've got it all on here. And that's good. So again, remember for the teachers, we are going to have a meeting with you guys after services today. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to throw out there. No, I guess that's it. All right, so give us a minute. We're going to have to rearrange a few things here for Rabbi Tom to come up. I really appreciate Rabbi Tom coming up and sharing a message with us today. And hopefully it will be less challenging than getting your scooter down a staircase. But anyway, so we look forward to that. I appreciate having him available. And, I always told him, see, this is how we see how people can follow directions. And you guys in the Gadol class, he always asked you guys to follow directions. I told Rabbi Tom, I said, you need to have a teaching ready just in case at all times. Because something could happen. I could get sick. I could get caught out of town. And so when I called him last night, I said, do you happen to have a teaching ready? He said, absolutely. Okay, so, which was a huge blessing to me because I just really needed to have that break. So, he had two ready, he said. Overachiever. Okay. Let that be a lesson to you. Okay? And so, having that ready really is a blessing to me. And so I appreciate that very much. So we're going to go ahead and take just a minute or two here to move the podium around and get some things resituated. And then you will have a message today from Rabbi Tom. Okay, you guys want to come up and do what you need to do? Okay, and as we get ready, you want to make sure you turn your cell phones off so we're prepared for the teaching.
Is the mic working now? Oh, yeah, okay. Let me know when we're ready. I appreciate our brethren helping me down. Kind of a pain in the neck, but I appreciate it. I always have to have my dog leash with me. Okay. Okay. Well, Shabbat Shalom. Well, this week, as perhaps every other week, there's been a lot of interesting news on TV and in the papers and radio and so on. And one of the events, sad events that I'm sure we're all familiar with, is the passing of Aretha Franklin, who was dubbed the Queen of Soul. Now, in 1967, Miss Franklin came out with a song that's kind of her hallmark. Does anybody know what that is? Respect, yeah. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Okay, all right. Now, that was in 1967. 20 years later, in 1987, Bruce Willis came out with a song called Respect Yourself. So we have two songs about respect, and that's also the title of our sermon today, respect. I think Marty might want a couple extra words in there, so I don't know, just more than respect. But what we're going to examine today is respect. But I want to preface what I'm going to say by first of all reminding everyone, and I have a reason for doing this, of Psalm 119, verse 165, as it is written in the or worded in the King James Version. Great peace have they that love thy law, for nothing shall offend them. And I want to say that it's not my intention to offend anyone. I'm not singling anyone out. I'm not directing these words to anyone. They're just something that Yahweh has laid on my heart that I feel I have to share. So we have to ask the question, what is respect? Well, as I was researching this out, I came across hundreds of words, hundreds of instances of respect, and the related word honor in the scriptures. Of course, you'll be glad to know we're not going to go through all several hundred of them. But there are several words that you'll notice are different in our ISR versions than in the King James Version. You have a King James, right? Okay. So respect in the King James may be translated as another word in the ISR, but the meaning is the same. The first reference, we always go by the law of first reference. The first reference to respect is found in Bereshith, chapter 4, that's Genesis chapter 4, verse 4. And this is, of course, when Cain and Havel brought their offerings to Almighty Yahweh. And Havel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And Yahweh looked to Havel and his offering. Now the ISR says looked. The KJV, I think, says Yahweh had respect. And sometimes we see this word looked, and it really means respect. A more perfect, by the way, that word, it's one of the Hebrew words for respect. It's sha'ah, number 8159 in the Hebrew, and it means to regard or have respect. Now let's turn over to Shemot or Exodus, chapter 2. And chapter 2 and verse 25. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. It says he looked. That really doesn't tell us too much. But the Hebrew word here is yada, and it's number 3045 in the Strong's. And that has a wide variety of applications, but it means to recognize, to acknowledge, to have knowledge of, to understand. So what this verse is telling us, and this is all part of respect, that Yahweh, when he looked upon the sufferings of his people, he sympathized with them and he empathized with them. Empathize, I'm sure everyone knows, means to feel what other people are feeling, to understand completely. And this is part of respect. We must be able to feel and to know and to understand others in order to have complete respect. Now in Leviticus, or Vayikra, chapter 19, we'll go to verse 15, and we have another instance. 15:19. And that is Strong's number 5375, and the word is nasa. Now in the, I'll read it from the ISR, or 1915, I'm sorry, not 1519, I got mixed up there. 1915, word is nasa. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling, and do not be partial to the poor or favor the face of the great, but rightly rule your neighbor in righteousness. So do not respect the great people. And respect in that sense is look on them more favorably than you would look on someone who's a poorer person or a person of lesser stature. That's part of respect. And finally, if we turn over to Vayikra 20 and verse 9, it says, for everyone who curses his father or mother shall certainly be put to death. I'm sorry, 26. It's 26 verse 9. I shall turn to you and make you fruitful and shall increase you and shall establish my covenant with you. The word there, turn, is, again, respect. And it's a different word in Hebrew. It's number 6427. It means para. It means have regard. But it can also mean to turn aside, to turn back, or to turn to. How does that work into respect? Well, let's say, for instance, if we have some kind of verbal brouhaha with someone, we don't have to stand there and argue with them. We can show respect by saying, look, we're both getting a little hot under the collar. Let's just walk away from one another. That's what it means to turn aside or turn back. We'll talk about it later. Or you can turn to someone who's getting upset or angry about something. You could say, well, what's the matter? Do you want to talk about it? That's having respect. And in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, there's again, there's several words, but the most telling word is found in Hebrews chapter 11:26. And in Hebrews 11:26, or Ibrim, as it is, we'll turn there. Hebrews 11:26, this is deeming the reproach of Messiah greater riches than treasures in Israel, for he was looking to the reward. We're looking for the respect. And that word in Greek there is apoblepo, if I'm pronouncing it right, apoblepo. And it means to look away from everything else and to intently regard, to have respect. And what does that tell us? To look away from everything else. That simply means to pay attention to what's being said, or maybe what you're reading, or what you're studying. That's showing respect. And we'll have more to say about that in a minute. Now, we have to understand simply that there are different words in the ISR than there are in the King James or maybe some other translations, but they all have the same meaning. And perhaps the most puzzling one is looked. When it says in Shemot 2:25, Yahweh looked to his people. He had respect for them. He had empathy. Now let's turn to 2 Kepha, or 2 Peter. That's Kepha Beit in the ISR. And we're going to chapter 2 and verse 17. I'm sorry, it's First Peter. First Peter. Respect all, love the brotherhood, fear Elohim, and respect the sovereign. There's two key words here, respect and love. It says respect all. That means that we have to respect everyone, or almost everyone. There may be a few exceptions. We'll get into that a little later. But we have to love the brotherhood. You have a next door neighbor, he's not in the faith. You have a coworker, he's not in the faith. We have to respect them, show them respect. But among ourselves, we have to have love. Love for the brotherhood, more than respect. But we have to respect everyone. And of course it says, fear Elohim, and respect the sovereign. Now, fear, of course, we know is not to be afraid of, but to have more like a holy awe for our Heavenly Father. And it also adds respect the sovereign. There's something that's lacking there today. We have a president of the United States. I'm not getting political here now. I'm just stating a fact. And he is perhaps the most controversial, the most loved, and the most hated of all presidents. And if you turn on most news channels, they say nothing but bad about him. And they really get into some pretty things, and they're some petty things. And his wife wasn't seen for 2 or 3 weeks, so they made a big conspiracy thing out of that, you know. And everything he says is used against him. Anything you say can and will be used against you, you know. And twice or 3 times. And the scriptures tell us very plainly, respect the sovereign. He's our sovereign. Whether you love him or hate him or like him or dislike him, he is the sovereign of this country. And the scriptures tell us we must have respect for him, period. And the same goes for your senator, your congressman, your governor, your mayor of your town, whatever. You may not like them. You don't have to like them. You certainly don't have to love them. But you have to have respect. And that, if we watch the news, that's what's sadly lacking. You have groups like Antifa, and who display an overt hatred, not only for the president, but for government, for all authorities. a hatred for the police, a hatred for the military, a hatred for college professors. Hatred, hatred, hatred. And then you have this thing that was started by one of our politicians to harass certain members of the political or bureaucratic establishment. And they've been harassed in restaurants and movie theaters and parks, going to or coming from church. They've been harassed walking down the street, called vile names. You see, respect is totally lacking in our country today. But we have to remember two things: respect and love. Now, the opposite of respect. Let's turn to the great law psalm, which is Psalm 119. And we're going to turn to verse 38. Establish your word to your servant, which leads to the fear of you. Turn away my reproach, which I dread, for your right rulings are good. You see, David, throughout this entire psalm, was devoted to Almighty Yahweh. He says in verse 30, I have chosen the way of truth. Your right rulings I have held level. I have clung to your witnesses. We have to cling to the word of Yahweh in order to have respect. Now the question comes up, do we treat everyone with respect despite differences? You know, we have differences here in Beth Shalom. Some of them are very obvious. A few of us may wear kippahs, and some of us don't. A few of the ladies may wear head coverings, and some don't. We have no business telling anybody what they have to do, because understanding and practicing headship is more important than covering your head. That's all I can say about that. We have people who believe, I don't know if we have any here in Beth Shalom, but I know in MTOI, we have people who believe in the flat earth theory. And some people don't. But for some strange reason, people have a proclivity to argue with one another over this. And when you argue with someone, it's hard to respect one another. It's difficult to respect one another. Almost impossible. So we have to respect their, I don't have time to study this thing out. I don't care whether the earth is flat or round or a cube or whatever it is. It makes no difference. Because I want to, lately I want to spend my time studying the Torah, studying the Word of Yahweh. And I don't want to argue with people over silly things like if the earth is flat or a globe or whatever it is. So we have to have respect for their views. You see, because if we don't, the danger is we become what's known as a Torah terrorist. Has anybody heard that term? Torah terrorist? Oh, you don't do things my way. I say Yahshua, you say Yeshua. You're going to the lake of fire. I have tzitzit, you don't. You're going to the lake of fire. No, you're going to the lake of fire because you're wearing them because you don't have the Holy Spirit. See, when you're a Torah terrorist, you become judgmental. And that's something that we want to avoid, because when you're judgmental, you don't have respect. You don't have respect for one another. So the bottom line is, don't be a Torah terrorist. Have respect. Now, if there's something really far out, like, someone says, I think the Sabbath is Friday or Thursday or Wednesday or something, you have to walk away from that person or whatever is appropriate. But let's keep in mind what Rabbi Steve always tells us: don't get bogged down in some kind of argument or discussion. Refer them to a teaching. That's it. But, we're not out to convert people to our way of thinking. Yahweh will do the converting. We catch the fish, he cleans them. Okay. Now, those are minor differences. Again, the major differences, and we've already mentioned this, for instance, are groups like Antifa, I think you pronounce Antifa, or these radical groups that want to riot and loot and fight with one another. Did you ever watch a news clip about these groups? The news clip is just saturated with beep, 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 beep. And what it's doing is it's beeping over their profanity. And we'll say something about that in a minute too. Profanity. But let's consider Matthew. Chapter 22, verse 21. This tells us how we must regard the government. We'll start in verse 20. He said, by he we mean Yeshua, said unto them, whose likeness and inscription is this? They held up a coin. And they said unto him, Caesar's. And he said unto them, then give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to Elohim what is Elohim's. You see, Yeshua lived in a time, it wasn't just merely Roman occupation. It was a time of great political upheaval. There were small rebellions that were always fomented against the government. There was violence. The Roman government, in many ways, was an oppressive government. But what did Yeshua ever say against Caesar? What did he ever say against the Roman government? He said, well, they're here. They're ruling over us. Let's concentrate on the kingdom, because my kingdom is not of this world. Now, if we turn to Romans, go back to Romans. Chapter 13. We're going to read verses 1. I think Yeshua must have read this, huh? Let every being be in subjection to the governing authorities. That doesn't mean that you have to violate Torah. It's not talking about violating Torah. For there is no authority except from Elohim. Do we understand what that means? The people who are in political power today are put there by Yahweh for whatever reason he has. We don't know what reason he has for them. Why did he allow people like Hitler or Mussolini or Stalin or Pol Pot to come to power? I don't know. I'm not even going to try to answer that. But they would have never come to power if he wouldn't have allowed it. He had his reason. He had his purpose. And the authorities that exist are appointed by Elohim. And that includes the patrolman on the beat, the patrolman that may be walking up and down the city streets or patrolling in a car. So he who opposes the authority withstands the institution of Elohim. These Antifa people and other such groups do not realize that when they are violently opposing the government, they're not just in a peaceful demonstration. They're violently opposing the government, that they're opposing Elohim. They're opposing their Creator. And those who withstand shall bring judgment on themselves. It's not up to us to judge them. Yahweh is going to judge them. For those ruling are an object of fear, not to good works, but to evil. What's that saying? We don't normally have to be afraid of the law or be afraid of the police or the military if we're not doing anything wrong. I've seen on news accounts, and I'm not saying this is the case all the time, but the news likes to sensationalize things, if you can believe that. Okay, but the police will get a guy and throw him down on the ground and force his arms behind him and put him in handcuffs. Why do they do that? They don't do that just for fun. They do that because the guy's resisting them. Or the woman's resisting them. There was a thing on the news the other day where a woman was stopped by the police, and she kicked the one cop and kind of put him out of commission for a while. Then she got in the police car and drove off. So, and then when the cops finally caught up with her, she was battling them, so they had to force her down to the ground and force her arms behind her and handcuff her. See? But we don't have to be afraid if we're doing good works. If we're stopped by a policeman, he says, I want to see your ID. So, okay, here it is. That doesn't mean that we have to necessarily kowtow to their wish, every wish and whim, because we do have rights. We don't have to allow them to trample over our rights. That's for sure. But we do have to have respect to obey lawful orders. For it is a servant of Elohim, in verse 4, for it is a servant of Elohim to you for good. The police aren't always good. They're bad cops. But basically, the police are good people. There was a saying a long time ago during the hippie movement. Next time you need help, don't call a cop, call a hippie. I'll call the cops, that's all right, if I need it. But if you do evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain. For it is a servant of Elohim, a revenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore it is necessary to be subject, not only because of wrath, but also because of the conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes. For they are servants of Elohim, attending continually to these rights. Now, sometimes taxes are a real burden. They can be oppressive. But Yeshua paid them. And we are to follow his example. I don't like paying taxes. Of course, I don't pay taxes right now because I get disability and Social Security. But almost every one of you here has to pay taxes. And I paid mine. But let's say that they're a necessary evil at best. So we pay taxes. And by doing so, we show respect to our government. Render therefore to all, in verse 7, what is due to them. Tax to whom tax is due, toll to whom toll, fear to whom fear, and respect to whom respect. Now, some time ago, someone says, do we have to respect someone who doesn't deserve it? Are there people who don't deserve our respect? Well, I can think of a few. Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Pol Pot, people like that. Maybe Charles Manson, John Wayne Gacy, criminals like that. They don't deserve our respect. But we're not to judge them. Yahweh will do the judging. They don't deserve our respect. But we cannot arbitrarily decide who we respect and who we won't. Now, I think in here largely we have conservative people. So some of the people here may not have been head over heels in love with our former president, Mr. Obama. But yet, if you were to meet him face to face, you would be obligated, according to Scripture, to address him as Mr. President. See, even ex-presidents are called Mr. President. And to show him the respect due to his office, even if you may not have liked his policies. And some people love the guy. Some people don't. Some people love Donald Trump, President Trump. Some people don't. But we have to show them respect, equal respect. That's what it's saying. Oh, no, in any matter except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the Torah. Let's go on. If we don't give, we won't get. Respect is mutual. It's a two-way street. If we don't show others respect, we can't expect them to respect us. Very simple. Let's turn to 2 Peter. I think I got the right Peter this time. 2 Peter 2:17. I'm sorry, 1 Peter. I was just trying to fool you. I want to see if you're on your toes. Okay, I just put Kepha, and I neglected to put first or second. All right. Again, and we've read this verse. Respect all, love the brotherhood, fear Elohim, respect the sovereign. There's a reason that I'm repeating this, because it's a very important lesson. That we learn to respect everyone we meet. Again, that does not mean that we have to like them. But we do have to show them respect. And we do have to learn to love one another. We have our own idiosyncrasies. We have our own differences. We have our own personality quirks. But that's part of being mishpocha, part of being family. We have to tolerate one another sometime. And that's part of having respect, when we tolerate one another. And sometimes it takes tolerance, it takes patience. But that's part of showing respect. We have to learn to do that. Let's turn to Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. Doing nothing at all through selfishness or self-conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Humility. This is one of the qualities, one of the attributes that Yahweh wants us to develop in ourselves is true humility. And we must consider others better than yourselves. If you look around to your left or right, or look ahead of you, behind you, you have to consider others better than yourselves, because we all have different strengths and different weaknesses. In other words, we cannot disregard or dislike or certainly not hate anyone. Hatred should never be a part of this congregation or anywhere in MTOI. There are people who get on our nerves, believe it or not. Yeah, there are some people who may rub us the wrong way. But that's part of being a family. I know I have people in my family that rub me the wrong way, but I'm also guilty of rubbing them the wrong way. But they're still family, biological family. By the way, Joanna and I consider Beth Shalom our true family. an MTOI. Each one should look out not only for his own interests, I'm in verse 4, but also for the interests of others. Let's not be so self-centered that we can't be concerned about other people. That's part of having respect. We have to look to other people. What do they need? How can I help them? Can I give them an encouraging word? Can I say, how are you today? And smile, even though I don't feel like smiling. How are you today? And they might say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. How are you? And they might say, oh, boy, I had a really lousy day. I just feel rotten. And then you can further encourage them. But this is what the scriptures tell us to do. Look out not only for your own interest, but also for the interest of others. Now, who are we to respect? Let's turn to 1 Thessalonians. And this is not by any means the sole scripture, but we'll use this one. If we turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, we'll read verses 12 and 13. But brothers, we beg you to know those who labor among you. Who's he talking about? Those who labor among us. Leadership. And also people who man the cameras, we have to show them respect. People who might set up chairs, we have to show them respect. But mainly it's leadership. Those who labor among you and are over you in the master and admonish you, and to hold them in the highest regard. I want to read that again. To hold them in the highest regard, in love, because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. That's interesting that it said be at peace among yourselves, because if we don't hold our leadership up with love and hold them in the highest regard, there can be no peace in ourselves or in this congregation. And we should all want peace. So, let's look at Yeshua's example of a leader. I have to bring this in. Let's turn to Yochanan. There's no question that Yeshua was a leader, a supreme leader. But let's turn to Yochanan chapter 13, and we're going to start in verse 2. That's John. And supper taking place, the devil having already put into the heart of Yehuda from Kirioth, son of Shimon, to deliver him up. Yeshua, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Elohim and was going to Elohim, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, and having taken a towel, he girded himself. And after that he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the taught ones, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. And so he came to Shimon Kepha, that's Peter, and he said to him, Master, do you wash my feet? Yeshua answered and said to him, You do not know what I am doing now, but you shall know after this. And Kepha said to him, By no means shall you wash my feet, ever. You're not going to wash my feet. What? You're a leader, you're a teacher. How can you do this? Yeshua answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. If I can't do this for you, you're not one of my disciples. Shimon Kefa said to him, you know now why they call him Impetuous Peter. Master, not only my feet only, but my hands and my head. Dump the whole bucket of water on me. And he went from one extreme to the other. And Yeshua said to him, he who has a bath does not need to wash, except his feet. Why feet? Why did he wash the feet? The word for walk in Hebrew is halakah. And we have to be very careful where we walk. We walk in the wrong place, we get our feet dirty. And we get more dirty than our feet. We can dirty our spirit, our souls, our minds, our heart. So he washed their feet. And he said, and you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would deliver him up. So he said, you are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and master, and you say, well, for I am. I'm your teacher. I'm your master. If I, master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. We can take that literally, but we have to take it, I think, on a little higher level, too. Servitude. We have to serve one another. We have the MTY coin here. Okay? And it says working together to serve the body. To serve the body. That's what serving is. One of the meanings of serving. We're working together to serve the body. We're not coming to be served. We're coming to serve. And I'm going to tell you something about serving. I know this for a fact. And this is true of many other leaders too, or at least some other leaders. But Rabbi Steve puts in many hours. It's kind of surprising that when he comes up for dinner, Miss Julie doesn't scratch her head and say, you know, you look familiar. But he puts in an inordinate amount of hours. Talking to people, counseling, preparing sermons. He's planning for feasts. He's given great counsel to many people. This takes time. I don't know how many hours a day Rabbi Steve works. Probably, 14, 15, 16, something like that, maybe more, maybe some days a few less. A lot of hours. If we work a regular job wherever you work, at a factory or at a construction site or driving truck or whatever you're doing, and you put in all those hours, you're going to get burned out. This is why once in a while he just has to get away from things for a week or so. He gets burned out. You know, he's a human being like we are. He's not a spirit being. He gets burned out. But the whole idea of leadership is not to lord it over people. It's to serve them. Joanne and I were in an organization where the leadership lorded it over people. I could tell you some horror stories about that. Somebody said their sermons were always little finger sermons. What he meant by that is that when Rehoboam was approached by some of the older men and say, hey, you know, can you lighten up a little bit? He consulted with the older wise men, and they said, yeah, you should lighten up. And he consulted with the young men, and they said, no, don't lighten up, make it worse. So he told them, my little finger will be thicker than my father's loins. He chastised you with whips. I'm going to chastise you with scorpions. So that's why, we heard the little finger sermons. That's what we jokingly called them behind the leader's back. Little finger sermons. We don't have that here. We don't have any little finger sermons. Thank you, Yahweh. So we are to show respect to the leadership. And we also have to realize, and this has been said just a little while ago, we show respect by practicing humility. We don't think of ourselves any higher than we ought to. We have to practice humility. Now, let's turn to 2 Corinthians. Second Corinthians chapter 10. And we'll read verses 12 through 17. For we do not presume to count ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, but they, measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. We're not to be in competition with anyone. We're just to be ourselves. And again, we're not to think of ourselves more highly than we ought. But we shall not boast beyond measure, but within the measure of the limits Elohim assigned to us to reach even to you. Elohim has given us certain talents, certain strengths, and we have certain weaknesses that we have to work on, and we have to realize that. For we are not overextending ourselves as if we did not reach to you. For we also came to you with the good news of the Messiah, not boasting beyond measure in the labors of others, but having an expectation that as your belief grows, we shall be greatly enlarged by you according to our limits. How do we enlarge ourselves? How do we grow greater? By helping others. I read one time that in a book written by a rabbi many years ago, that if you want to grow spiritually, pray for others. Look for ways to help others. Look for ways to serve others. And that's one of the keys to spiritual growth. And we must also respect ourselves. It's not self-sovereignty. We have to have confidence to respect ourselves. There's some people who lack confidence in themselves. They think they're worthless. But when you do that, you're playing into the hands of Hasatan. But how do you respect yourselves? Well, several ways. And again, I'm going to caution you, Psalm 119, verse 165. Okay? Blessed are they who love thy Torah, for nothing shall offend them. I don't mean to offend anyone, but if I offend you, well, take it in humility. Let's turn to Matthew, chapter 22. We're going to read verses 11. Well, we'll start in 10. Those servants went out on the street corners and gathered all whom they found, both wicked and good. You know, that's how our congregation here grew and came about. We didn't have just a bunch of good people come in. We had some bad people come in. And they transformed. They changed for the better. So they gathered both wicked and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. And when the sovereign came in to view the guests, he saw there a man who had not put on a wedding garment. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here not having a wedding garment?" And he was speechless. And the sovereign said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, take him away, throw him out in the outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Now, I realize that this is very metaphorical, very sod level, but I'm going to take this down to Peshat level. When we come into worship, do we realize, and we must realize, that we are coming before a great king. We are coming before the creator and sustainer of the universe. We are coming before the giver and sustainer of all life. We're coming before the supreme royal majesty. Now, we don't have a dress code here. I know in organizations like the Worldwide Church, for example, the old Worldwide, it's no longer existence. When you went to services there, the men had to wear a suit and shirt and tie, or a sport coat and nice white shirt and tie or something. The ladies had to wear nice dresses. And they had a very strict dress code. There's nothing wrong with that. But here we're a little more relaxed. But sometimes I think we get too relaxed. When we were in the old Baptist church over there in the gymnasium in Appleton, there was I'm just going to say this, there was a young fellow that came in several times, about, I think 3 times. And the first time he came in, he had on cut-off Levi's, and the legs weren't quite cut even. One was a little bit longer. And they weren't hemmed, so they had little strings. And maybe he thought they were tzitzis, I don't know. Had little strings, threads hanging down. And he had on a pair of open sandals. And he had on a T-shirt, a black T-shirt. And it had a few holes in it, pretty well worn. And on the back, it says Joe's Crab Shack or something like that. Such and such town, Florida. I think Robert may remember him. And his hair was a little unkempt, you know. Now, nobody said anything to him that I know of. Nobody got down on him. Nobody disrespected him. But he showed disrespect by appearing that way before Almighty Yahweh, and I'm just going to say it. He showed disrespect. And he came in about 3 times, 2 or 3 times. Then I haven't seen Joe's Crab Shack anymore. What was he doing wearing a shirt? It was pretty faded, but you could still read it. It said Joe's Crab Shack. Did he go to a crab shack and eat crab? I don't know. But we have to dress modestly. We don't have to get all dressed up in a suit and a tie or a tuxedo or a cummerbund and all that. That's not required, but we do have to dress decently and modestly. Well, I better get off that or the tomatoes are going to come flying up here, I guess. Okay. We also have to have show respect by our speech. Let's turn to Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let no corrupt word come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for the use of building up, so as to impart what is pleasant to the hearers. Good speech is acceptable anywhere. What I'm talking about now, primarily, is profanity. Why do intelligent, well-educated people, and most of us here are intelligent, well, no, regardless of the degree of our education, Why do we have to use profanity to express ourselves? You know, I have some family members who are very intelligent, very well-educated people, college educations. A couple of them have degrees in something or other, I don't know. They can't put one sentence together without a word of profanity in it. They can't talk about going deer hunting or something without profanity. They can't talk about the politics without profanity. They can't talk about anything without using profanity. And it just drains on me. Years ago, I worked 2 jobs. I worked for the newspaper bureau during the day, and during the night, to supplement my income, I worked at a truck stop repairing radios. Well, I have truckers come in, and some of them use some pretty colorful language sometimes, you know. And it always repulsed me. But after about 5 or 6 months of this, I noticed that I began slipping. I began using something go wrong, and I'd use some profanity. You see, it tells us several things. We are who we associate with. And we are the product of our environment. So if you're in an environment or you associate with people who use profanity all the time, get away from them. What did we read here in verse 29? It says, but only such as is good for the use of building up, so as to impart what is pleasant to the hearers. Profanity is not pleasant to hear. It doesn't build up, it tears down. So let's be careful to show respect by having our speech build up, be positive, have good speech, be encouraging to one another. Well, there's another way that we have to show respect, and that's found in 2 Timothy. Second Timothy 2:15, a verse that should be very familiar. Paul tells Timothy, do your utmost to present yourself approved to Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. So we show respect for the word of Yahweh by studying, by learning it, by learning all we can, by delving into it. And that is part of showing and learning respect. Studying the word, delving into the word. Kepha says, be ready to give an answer to every man that asks a reason of the hope that is within you. We can't stand there like a dummy and just say, oh, I don't know. Now, of course, we have to be cautious. There are times when we have to say, look, that requires a very detailed answer, and I want to refer you to a couple of teachings you can get on CD or you can download from the MTOI website, because there's a very complicated answer to your question. But if someone asks you, all right, why do you wear tzitzit? Well, because we're commanded to in Numbers 15 and Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 22, where it tells us to wear fringes on the corners of our garments. That's good. Then what did Rabbi Steve just say about an hour ago? Let them lead. Let them ask the next question. So we always have to encourage one another with our speech. Let's turn to Proverbs chapter 4. Mishlei, Proverbs chapter 4. And verse 24, turn away from you a crooked mouth and perverse lips far from you. Turn away from a crooked mouth. If you're around people, if we're around people who constantly have to use profanity to speak, to communicate, the only solution I can think of is get away from them, separate yourselves. It doesn't mean you have to be nasty to them. Just separate yourself. Because if you don't, you'll begin to use the type of speech they will. It's the old good apple, bad apple theory. And you know what that is. You can put a bad apple in a barrel of good ones and it'll turn all the good ones rotten. But you can put a good apple in a barrel of bad apples and it'll turn rotten. So that's the way it works with our lives and our associations. Now if we go to verse 18 in chapter 4. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines ever brighter unto the perfect day. Do we want to be like the light of dawn? Do we want to be a light to people? That's what we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to exude darkness and gloom and despair. We're supposed to be a light. We're supposed to exude positivity in our lives. Now, how are some of the ways that we show disrespect? Oh, I got to remind you, 119, 165. When Rabbi Steve or whoever is up here, or maybe at the feast Curtis is up here or something, giving a sermon, are we here paying attention? Are we here to learn? Or are we sitting in the hallways and talking to one another? Brethren, I've come down from the Gadol class and walked through the hallway and saw people sitting out there to one another. And I picked up a little tidbit of their conversation. They weren't talking about the sermon. They weren't talking about Torah. They weren't talking about the Sabbath. They were talking about secular subjects. Why do we come here? To fellowship out in the hallway with people? Or do we come here to learn from the sermons? Well, I don't see anybody getting up and walking out so far, so that's encouraging. Okay. All right. Now, right across the hall, we have a room. And it's for mothers with small babies and toddlers because, they can get a little out of hand. They can cry and carry on and be a little disruptive, so the mothers take them over there. That's what the room is for. But I have seen people sitting in that room who do not have any children. And 2 or 3 of them are in small clusters. And they beep, back and forth. I don't know what they're talking about. I can't hear them through the glass, and I don't care what they're talking about. But they're showing disrespect by being in that room where they have no business being, instead of being in here and learning. And I won't back off on that. One more thing. Oneg. What is oneg? Well, it means delight. It's our little fellowship get-together after services. But oneg is not meant to be a full meal. It's just meant to be something that tide you over. Now, we have a policy. If you're here 3 times or less, you're a guest. You go first. The mothers with little children go first. And then everybody else goes. But we have to show respect by the amount of food that we take. There were a few individuals who just heap their plate up as high as they can get it with food. They're food hogs. And then 3 or 4 people behind them don't get any. Several weeks ago, Shamash Losi didn't get anything to eat because there was no food left. because people just heap their plates up. We have to have respect for one another. We have to take, if there's a big plate of cookies, and we like cookies, maybe they're peanut butter cookies or chocolate chip cookies or whatever. We can't take a dozen of them and put them on our plate. That's being a food hog. Take one. And leave the other 11 for someone else. I don't mean one person now, but 11 other people. Okay. All right. So we have to be careful and consider others. One of the last things I want to address is forms of address. And this is very important. Do we give respect to whom respect is due? Now, we normally refer to Rabbi Steve as Rabbi Steve. Some people have a problem with the word rabbi, so they call him Nasi. And he is a Nasi. Nasi means like president, or it was the head of the Sanhedrin. We don't have a Sanhedrin here, but what really grinds my cookies is when they go, "Hey, Steve." That is not respect. That is disrespectful. And he said one time, if you don't want to call me rabbi, if you don't want to call me Nasi, call me Mr. Berkson. But Steve is not a respectful form of address. I have never called that man Steve in my life. But the same respect also applies to our Rebbitzin. And I'm addressing here some of the younger people, some of the older teens, and maybe people in their 20s. I've seen them go up and say, "Julie." Joanne and I got in the habit of saying Miss Julie or Rebbitzin Julie to show respect. She is the Rebbitzin. She deserves respect, doesn't she? And there's a man here who sometimes we take for granted, a couple men. They're sitting right back there, with their back against the wall. Robert and Kurt. They are Shamashim. We don't have to call them Shamash. That's not required. But they do a lot of work, quiet work, in the congregation here. And sometimes I think they're not given proper respect. And the same would go for their wives, Miss Nayla and Miss Stephanie. And I've seen some young people, I'm talking older teenagers, maybe people in their 20s, just call them by their first name. Now I want to tell you why I'm saying this. When I was a kid, I was legally adopted by my grandparents. And before we bought our farm, we lived in a small town. And we lived in a very ethnic-centered neighborhood. It was a Slavic neighborhood. There were Slovaks, Czechs, Carpatho-Russians, Ukrainians, Croatians, whatever, some Poles. And there were a few Italian families there too, by the way. And we got along great because they all had old world values. Now it seems that some of the people there, especially some of the Slavic people, got stuck on certain names. There might have been 20 or more men, and the names were Mike, George, Steve, John, Ed, and Emil. They were stuck on those 6 names. And most of the women were named Mary or Anna. I don't know why that is. But I want to tell you something. If someone came to our house, whether they come as a dinner guest or whether they came as just to say hello, drop in for a few minutes. If I would have called any one of those men or any one of those ladies by their first name, all of a sudden, whack, I'd get backhanded across the face by my grandmother. And then the most horrifying words would come out of her mouth. Now, mister, I'm going to teach you something. And I knew what I was going to get taught. I never did violate that rule, by the way. I never did call anyone, hey, Mike, hey, George, hey, John. It was a custom to address them, put a Mr. before their name, but we didn't say Mr. Mr. in Slovak is Pan. It has nothing to do with God Pan. Don't worry about that. You go to Israel, it's Adon. Okay, right? Adon. So we'd say Pan Yatsko or Pan Seplak, whatever their last name was. That's how I addressed them. And the ladies, even though there was no relationship, we'd call Tsitka, which meant aunt. Tsitka Mary, Tsitka Ama. They weren't my aunts. But as a form of respect, I addressed them that way. That was ingrained to me, so that's why I'm bringing this out to you. Maybe you weren't raised that way. But the point that I'm trying to make is we have to learn to show respect, and we have to teach our children to give respect where respect is due. Why do we have to do that? Well, if we don't show respect to other people, if we don't show love for the brethren, and if we don't respect ourselves by practicing respect, how in the world can we respect Yahweh? We can't. It's impossible. So we said respect is what's missing in the world today. And we must be the ones to set it right. We must be the ones to set the example. It's up to us to set the right example. Are we up to the challenge? Remember that phrase? Are we up to the challenge? Sure, we should be. You see, the bottom line is this, and I'm going to end here. We cannot possibly be the type of person that Yahweh wants to live with forever unless we learn respect. Almighty and eternal Father, we thank you and praise you and bless you. Father, we ask that the words that were spoken here were true and pleasing in your sight. And we pray, Father, that they'll penetrate the hearts and minds of those who are hearing them now and those who will hear them later on the live stream or on disc or whatever. We pray, Father, that we'll take the idea of learning respect seriously and begin to put it into practice and begin to teach it to our children and to gently remind one another to show respect. And most of all, Father, we know we have to have respect for you. And we do have respect for you. But Father, we know that we can never have proper respect for you if we don't learn to respect others, and if we don't love one another, and if we don't have respect for ourselves. So Father, again, teach us to have more respect. We want to learn your ways, and we want to live in your ways. We ask you to hear and accept this prayer. B'Shem Yeshua Meshikenu. Amen. Well, I'm certainly happy nobody got up and walked out. Nobody threw anything at me. What? Okay. Oh, lack of respect, throwing tomatoes. Yeah, I would take it that way. Yeah, I would take it that way.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Rabbi Tom. We really appreciate the message today. All right, so this is the time we call the afterburn. And so if you've got questions for Rabbi
That's when
Tom,
you get burnt.
Did you bring your shield? Okay, so this is afterburn time, so Daweed's going to be walking around. He's got a mic over there. And so as you raise your hand, he'll bring the mic around to you. So we're looking for comments or questions about the teaching today specifically. And so go ahead and raise your hands. The mic is coming. There were some hands back here. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nate.
Thank you, Rabbi Tom. And
give Yahweh the praise.
Amen. Thanks. So I was reflecting on when you went through John chapter 13, verses 5 through 9, where Yeshua washed his disciples' feet.
Right.
And I was thinking this is more of a comment about we as men need to put our pride aside. That when I think about some of how we approach our leadership, and I was a big non-supporter of leadership for a while after we got out, and everybody's probably heard that story already. But I'm thinking about certain times during when we're with the other men where I would get actually angry because somebody would refer to rabbi doing rabbi work. Now, I don't believe that rabbi took that offensive at all.
Oh, no.
But for me, out of respect, especially after I got to know the man and how much he does work, and I think he was out to lunch or doing something, but even when he's at lunch, he's working.
Yeah.
Because he's counseling. He sits down and he spends time with us. And if I know for my family, he spent a lot of time with us. And that's part of the reason why I chose to choose this man as my rabbi. I have never, and I've worked with a lot of teachers in the past, and I use that very loosely now for them, that were served and were not into serving who their sheep were. And this is the first time where I was actually like, I don't think I want to be a teacher. If that's, because he's always going. I don't know if I could keep that pace. No. And I get, so I didn't like that term was used, even though it was probably in jest. It's just a show, to me, it's like a lack of respect. And those of us who were in the military or in the law enforcement or stuff like that, how is it that I can call a lieutenant so-and-so, or commander so-and-so, or whatever, or even those who are in lower rank? We still use the term that was given to us, call them private or specialist or whatever. Even though you're a higher rank, you're still respecting that title that they've been given. Now, you're forced in the army or the military or whatever you're in to use those terms towards those people because that's what they've been lawfully given. Our rabbi and Rabbi Tom and our Shamash Loshi and Shamash Kirk, they've earned those positions, not because they were forcing it upon other people, but the people have seen that in them. And how much more should we show that respect, honor that Yahweh has put an authority over us, that we chose to come under that authority. So for those of us who are in those or have been in the past, been in those areas, are still in that place where, well, I'll call no man rabbi, we need to really investigate how we're approaching our authority, because that, I had to relearn that. So I just wanted to say thank you for the teaching, the respect, learning. I had to relearn what it meant to be respect. The other thing that I had to say was, how many of you been pulled up behind, the police pull up behind you? How many of you get excited when they pull up behind you? Your heart starts to race, you get a little nervous. And you may not have even done anything wrong. I get that way. I start, was I speeding? Was I going fast? And I start going through all these things that I could be going through. And I was just thinking about how the fear of Yahweh and learning to not only that, but recognize those who are put in leadership over us as emissaries for our commander-in-chief, that when that police officer gets behind us and he's asking, so how you doing today? Oh, I'm doing good. What did I do? If we could come to that place where we fear and respect our Creator and have that, that's what I'm praying for in my life, is to have that fear and respect for our Creator, because I really don't understand what that means, because he doesn't come knocking on my door and asking me where my license is. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to keep going. But we got to come to a place where we respect our authority, our earthly authority, in a way that is honoring our King.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of when you mentioned the military and talking about respect, the military is full of old sergeants. Guys have been there for, NCOs have been there for 20, 25 years, maybe 30 years. And here comes a young 20, 21-year-old kid fresh out of OCS, has a couple of gold bars on his shoulders. And they got to call him sir. And they have to salute him. And they have to take orders from him. And he may not know whatever from whatever, But they have to follow his directions, and they have to show him proper respect. Because if they don't, they can face a courts-martial. Just the way it is. And so Paul told Timothy, let no man despise your youth. So, of course, we don't have too many young people in here, but certainly I'm not one of them. Go ahead, Fred.
Because of experiences of my life, it's been helpful sometimes to define things as what things are not. And so one thing that's been helpful for me is instead of that God is no respecter of persons, but the flip side, God is no disrespecter of persons.
That's right. That's right. Of course, Yahweh does show respect, but like we read in Exodus 2:25, where the ISR says he looked. He looked. That means he had empathy for them, and he felt their pain, and that's a form of respect. Go ahead.
Just kind of a double thing. I had one thing that I had written down that I thought of while you were reading John 13:10, but before you get on that, kind of like what Nate was saying on the military side, and kind of like what you're doing, we call him the big sergeant, who's the guy who's already got all the experience under his belt, and then the young sergeant, he's new to it, but he's got a lot of the knowledge there. He just doesn't have the experience to go with it yet. And at least in the guard side, we have a way of trying to help out with that. We have actually me and another sergeant I just went to class with. He was young. He's only been in 3 years. He's already got his E5, and kind of break in the troops into him taking over the leadership role when he first got it. They were like, okay, we're going to have you do a lot of the still specialist E4 stuff, but while you're doing that, remember that you have to make them do more of the work than you do because you still outrank them. Versus on my side, it took me forever to get my head out of my rear end and get to E5, so I was already the E4 specialist for 11 years and already had the respect of the Joes. And so now, as an E4 waiting to get my stripes, they're like, okay, we're going to start putting you as doing the in-charge stuff. So when we tell you, hey, we need you to go get this done, we don't want you to do it like you normally just go out there and get it done. We need you to get the other guys to do it so that they can get used to you now being in charge of them, not you just follow you because you've been here for so long. And then that kind of related to the point I wrote down, related to John 13:10 when he was talking about if you have taken a bath, you need not wash yourself except your feet. And then in Mark 2:17, he also says, the strong don't come to the physician for help. It kind of just randomly popped in my head relating the two. As you go out, you've been healed, and you might have to walk through the mud to help someone else get pulled out of it, and then your feet still need to get washed when you get out so you can go back in again.
Amen. Anybody else? Daweed? Rebitson has her hand up.
Rebitson.
Yep.
Good thing David's skinny. He can squeeze through these. Honestly.
It just hit me while you were giving the teaching and people were talking about, you were talking about the president and how he's the most loved and most hated. And I was thinking about all the things my husband has said about leadership and how it's so important to follow leadership, because I think that's what Yahweh allowed Trump to be president now, because he is showing us that we don't know how to follow leadership and respect it. And it's not just on a local level, it's not just in your congregations, it's worldwide. And so Yahweh's trying to humble us and show us that you got to get this right, because how are you going to follow me? Because we are so self-sovereign.
We're arrogant. Many people are arrogant.
Amen. I did want to make a comment, so I'll do it while the microphone's going back and forth. Look, one of the things, can we all agree that we're looking to transform and conform into Yeshua, right?
Amen.
Okay, and one of the comments that we know in Scripture is that he was recognized as one having authority. But you know what else he was? One who was clearly under authority.
Yeah. Authority of
Okay,
the Father.
so he was recognized as having authority, but yet out of his own mouth he constantly said, I am under authority.
Mm-hmm.
If you see me, you see my Father. Everything I do is because I'm completely submitted under his authority. We are in a world that does not want to be under authority. That's what we see happening in the politics and in the world and things like that. And so what you need to but you need to kind of sort through in your own life, how willing are you actually to be under authority? Well, when Yeshua gets here, I'll go on to him and nobody else. Well, I don't see that verse anywhere. How are you ever going to practice that? How are you going to get used to what that looks like? Well, but all this terrible leadership is, well, that's true. Yes, leadership's been terrible. Okay? Hopefully you're finding better leadership. I don't see anywhere in Paul's writings in Ephesians where it says, well, those fivefold guys, if you can't really find them and they're not just right there in your neighborhood, then don't look for them anymore. You still need those guys, the evangelists and the prophets and the apostles and the teachers and the shepherds, etc. And so let's just keep that understanding. He's talking about respecting authority. I will be teaching about leadership and authority at some point. We did cover it quite a little bit on Tuesday as we went through Deuteronomy 17, which is all about authority. And a lot of times people forget that Deuteronomy 17 applies today.
Yes, it does.
Okay, see, people look back at it and go, well, that made sense back then. If they went to the leader or the priest or whoever was the anointed at that time and asked a question that they should do what he said, well, that's not any different today. And the word that Rabbi Tom used was arrogance. Well, it says in Deuteronomy 17 that if you don't do what they instruct you to do, that is arrogance. And so let's just keep that in mind. Now, again, there are people that accuse us of being arrogant, thinking that we should be treated a certain way as leadership. No, you should be treating us a certain way as leadership if you have recognized that to be the case. If you have recognized the leadership being in that person, in Rabbi Tom or myself or whoever that is. But you should recognize it because that's a servant leader. You're looking for servant leadership. You're looking, as Nate pointed out and Rabbi Tom pointed out, about the hours that maybe I work and that I would sit down with people even when I'm doing rabbi stuff. That was just a joke because on Marco Polo it seemed like every time I posted I was sitting at a restaurant. But every time I was sitting at a restaurant I was working with people. Okay, so it got to be a little joke. But the thing is, that's for you to vet. But once you've vetted it, then you have to choose. You have to choose. This is what you're demonstrating in, whether you will choose to come under authority. And choosing to come under authority means that you may, no, I'm going to say that a different way. You absolutely will not like everything that authority has you to do or not do. You will absolutely not like every moment of that. But if you do it long enough, you'll find that you really do like the fruit of it. And it starts to bear that fruit, and it does work, and it does have its blessing that comes from it. But that's, again, not to be imposed on. See, that's the leadership you run away from. The one that will impose authority on you. He wants to see, will you submit voluntarily and come under authority?
Right.
And if we're going to be like Yeshua had authority, no doubt. And all of you, to whatever degree, are excited about maybe I'll be authority someday. Well, that's all well and good. But are you going to be an authority that's under authority? Because that's what Yeshua was. He was fully in charge, yet he was fully submitted. Think about that all embodied in one person. To be completely and fully in charge, yet completely and fully submitted under. That's what we're supposed to become. Amen? All right, where's the mic?
A couple of weeks ago, Rabbi Steve and Julie, Miss Julie and my wife, we were at a restaurant. And there were times, we joked around and laughed. But I think we talked about secular subjects maybe 10% of the time. And the rest, while we were eating, was all business. It was business that pertained to Beth Shalom or MTY. It was all business. It wasn't just fun and games. We were fellowshipping by having a meal together.
Amen.
But we were down to brass tacks.
And there's nothing wrong with us socializing, too.
No.
But just to realize that we do try to put as much time as we can into that. And most of you who might see me socially looking like I'm being social, if you actually walk over and listen, you'll find that if I'm not ministering, I'm probably not going to still be sitting there. I'll go find something else to do because I just don't do the social well. It's not that I'm against it. People say, well, I see you always with all these people. Well, that's when I'm working. I don't do the social thing as good if we're just sitting and chit-chatting. Occasionally we can get on a subject I could do, but not often. But just so you understand, again, this is about respecting authority, coming under authority, how we deal with authority, because it all reflects on how he believes you're treating him, and you probably treat him similarly anyway. Okay, you probably do. In other words, we're good about coming under authority when we're in agreement with that authority. There's that submission problem again. What do we do, though, when we're not necessarily in agreement? And trust me, all of us are going to be finding ourselves in places where we're not in agreement with him. We just, not because we think he's wrong, we just don't like what he wants us to do, or we just don't want to stop and not do what he wants us to not do. So we're just not in agreement. We just don't want to do or want to not do. And it's not really because we think he's wrong. We just like what we like, and we don't like what we don't like. And we don't like authorities trying to push us in a direction that deals with us having to go against our preferences. And that's where we get into trouble. But that's a problem with authority. What did Yeshua say? He said, this is my preference. He said, but nevertheless, your will be done, right? Mm-hmm. When he was talking to his father, he said, Father, if it's possible, this would be my preference. But nevertheless, your will be done. That's submission, okay? So we're not necessarily expected to love everything that Abba tells us to do or not do. He doesn't expect that to be like our default. And if you don't, you're just normal. Just try, okay? Just accept you're normal. But you still have to submit under his authority. And if he says no, it's no. And if he says do, it's do. If he says go, it's go. And if he says stay, it's stay. That's it. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Go ahead.
Rabbi Tom, the last thing I want to do is disrespect you, with particularly your background of being a rabbi and what you go through being a rabbi. I know one day I'm going to stand before him, and I don't want to form God's shape with my own hands. But the question I'm about to ask you is going to put you on the spot, and I'm asking you, should I ask it, or do I just go home? Because the Bible says in the last days there will be a major problem, and you're to run from that last day church. And the question I'm going to ask goes against what you've taught, possibly. I don't know the Hebrew that well.
Ask it.
Okay. When the prophet was on top of the mountain, and the king sent his soldiers.
You're talking about Eliyahu? Eliyahu?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The prophet refused to do what the king said by coming down off the mountain. He called fire down from heaven, which would have been God sending that fire, and burnt all them troops up. There may have been good men possibly in them troops, but God did that. And the Bible teaches that God is the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. So there is a time where we can stand against leadership.
Yeah, there is certainly a time, but we have to understand that what Eliyahu was against was the religious syncretism that went on. Am I right on that? He was against the religious syncretism because the people, he told Israel, why do you halt between two opinions? Why do you have one foot in Baal worship and put in
That's right.
Yahweh worship. And that's what he was against.
That's
now, people are destroyed all the time, good people. When we firebombed Dresden, there were probably mothers with babies there. You know, we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There were a lot of good, innocent people who wouldn't have hurt a flea. They died.
Well, you
But-
think? Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me try to answer your question.
Okay.
Okay. That's a good question. And by the way,
Yeah, there's not a bad
we want to take the question because we want to show you that we'll take questions. We're not afraid of questions.
Yeah.
You know, neither Rabbi Tom or I are afraid of questions. But here's the thing. We have to always look at the context and see, are we applying equal context to different situations? So when you say, based on that situation that happened with Eliyahu, okay, then you're going to say, well, there is a time when we stand against leadership. Well, there's a big problem with that word "we" in there, okay? Leadership is something you vet and seek out and voluntarily come under. If it goes south, you do what David did and you leave. Eliyahu, though, is not coming against leadership as a "we." Eliyahu's a leader in his own right. And there was a battle going on. And so it was one side against the other. It wasn't the same thing as like David and Saul, okay? David and Saul was a different problem. Saul was the actual anointed, appointed leader of Israel, and David recognized and respected that, okay? On the other hand, that being said, Eliyahu was dealing with a spiritual battle. He was anointed and appointed to deal with that battle, just like we had with Samuel, okay? And Samuel got in Saul's face, and we had a big problem because he had a different authority. We is the word you used, and the "we" doesn't have that authority, okay? So the "we" doesn't necessarily stand up against leadership. The "we" gets out of its way and goes and leaves it if it's a problem, leadership. But for us to stand up against it, like when you say Eliyahu didn't do what the "we" gets to do, all right? Eliyahu was in an actual battle, and he was a leader in his own right. And in some sense, as the prophet, he was a higher leader. Okay, David wasn't a prophet, and David wasn't the king yet. David didn't have any higher ranking. Samuel had the higher ranking, actually, than Saul did. Okay? So that Samuel came in and got in Saul's face, didn't he? Okay, because Samuel's like, wait a minute, I represent the Most High. I anointed you in this position, and why didn't you do what I told you to do from the mouth of the Most High? That's the higher authority. So let's be careful that we don't take this as to reading into the "we" have the right to stand up against leadership. We have a right to deal with leadership respectfully and to avoid the damage that it might do to us. But standing up against it, be really careful how we do that. Okay? Because there may be a right time and a right way, but you know what? You should be under some other leadership that helps you figure that out. All right? Because now we're talking about the difference between the world's government, which is what Eliyahu was dealing with, okay? To a certain degree, he was running into that kind of a problem versus, because it had all gone south with Elijah, okay? And that's why he was saying, look at this whole Baal worship thing that's going on, and look what else I'm up against. And so he had to draw that line. And so let's just be careful with it. Is that fair?
It's fair, but
Use the mic.
I can clarify the "we."
Okay, use the mic.
I can clarify why I used the word "we."
Mm-hmm.
It's because we are in the last days. And when the false...
We don't know that.
Okay.
Okay, just to be clear, this ministry does not claim what time it is.
All right.
We may be.
Well, we know the false prophet comes onto the scenes and derails the church, and the Bible says anybody that follows that church, it ain't good for where they go. We also know that it'll be leadership that tries to impose the mark of the beast onto the public. So that would be a "we" as to why all of them need to stand
We
up.
avoiding as a "we" coming against.
Right.
We coming against isn't going to do anything but martyrdom, which is okay. Some of us will get martyred anyway. But bear in mind, if there is that leadership that's under the false prophet or under the beast and that's trying to lead the people astray, you're supposed to recognize it and get away from it. It doesn't say that you're going to come up and try to bang heads with it. Right. Okay? Now, the only two that are going to end up banging heads with it are the two witnesses. And they're not actually going aggressively to bang heads. They're just going to stand there saying, hey, that ain't it. Okay? As witnesses, they're going to be pointing going, he ain't it. That's the way I interpret it. So just understand the difference is the idea of we, and I'm including me in this, as human beings have this idea that I want to come against. And we see this all over Facebook right around Christmas time and Easter time. We want to come against the things that we know are wrong and the things that we don't believe anymore. And we got to stop that. You got to stop participating, but you don't have to come against. That's his job. He'll take care of that. He's got to convict their hearts and open their eyes and open their ears or whatever he has to do. We don't have to come against. Does that make sense? But we have a responsibility not to participate in.
Right.
And that's the difference, okay?
No,
there was no disrespect there. It's a legitimate question.
disrespect.
And I appreciate your caution that you didn't want to disrespect. No, it was a legitimate question.
In Revelation 12 and 14, the woman does not fight the beast. The woman is the true assembly. She goes into the wilderness and hides.
Right, there's an avoiding of that conflict, okay? And even Paul tells us, to, if possible, try to live at peace. And we see David's example. I mean, Saul was trying to kill him, let's be honest. I mean, there wasn't any doubt. I mean, Saul wanted to kill him. David knew that. And David could have come against. And instead, he chose to leave.
But he was still
okay?
not doing what leadership wanted. He was running from the leadership. Leadership didn't want him to run.
Well, but I'm just saying is David was doing what he tried to do to respect and said, look, I didn't put Saul in that position. It's not my job to take him out. Okay? And so let's just be careful. This country is getting all problematic because everybody wants to come against. Instead of trying to work with, have discussion, they're just coming against. Okay? And they did that to Obama, too, to some degree. Not quite as, in the extremes that we see right now. But, the right did not have any love of Obama, just like the left that doesn't have any love of Trump. I mean, it's just, And so, but this whole idea of always having to come against. And by the way, you don't see either side when they weren't in power, and I can point the finger just at the Republicans just as much as the Democrats now. They never really gave us a alternative, what are you going to do instead? All they want to do is come against. Okay? You really didn't hear anything from the right of what they were going to do to fix the problem when the left was in charge, and you're not hearing anything out of the left now of how they claim they're going to fix whatever they don't like. They just want to be against. We have to stop being in that idea of just being against. All right? Let's find what we're supposed to be and be for him. We know what we should be for as opposed to what we should be against. All right, where's the mic? Because we just got it. It's really getting late here. We've got to just get one or two more in. Oh, Brianna. Okay, I'm sorry.
In Gadol, we were talking a lot about respect, like from the past weeks, and then now you're doing the teaching. But something I really stood out was in Proverbs 4:24, how it talks about turn away from your crooked mouth and put perverse lips far from you. How you said you are who you associate with, but a lot of in this day and time, a lot of YouTube and a lot of people you associate with, you start acting like them, and I really understood that. So.
Amen.
Yeah, well, you're part of the Gadol class. What I said here in the latter part of this, I told you guys, right? About respect and associations. So that's part of respecting yourself, too.
Amen. And that's why I had the Gadol class. The Gadol, for those of you online, that means big. Katan means small, Gadol means big. So our older students here, who are normally taught by Rabbi Tom, are in here to hear the teaching today. But also for you children, let me ask you a question. Would you agree that most of the most popular YouTubers that you would watch, the thing they all have in common is their lack of respect for others, whether it's an authority, other YouTubers, aren't they always generally mocking, attacking, picking on, making, you understand what I'm saying? Don't you see that a lot on YouTube? Don't you see that a lot going on in there? That this is one of those themes. A lot of these guys out there, and people who are watching and taking that in, that's what they're learning. They're learning that to be popular is to go against and to mock and to rip on other people. And that lack of respect is what the children are seeing because that's being held up high. Now, maybe the children here are going, what are you talking about? Because they're not listening to those guys, which is good. Okay? But there's a lot of that out there. And that's what's feeding into, our youth, is that they're watching, the popular shows are the ones that are attacking other shows, other YouTubers, other people, other whatever. It's all about attack. And so we're looking for the positive message that we get here. Okay? It's the positive message we're trying to get to.
Amen.
All right? I'll wait for the camera to catch that. Okay, Shira, go ahead. And then we got to start wrapping this up.
Thank you so much, Tom. Rabbi Tom.
That was a good way to start.
Oh, by the way, I got to say one thing. I forgot to include you. When some of the younger people here address you, they should say Miss Shira.
Amen.
Thank
Amen.
you. And many of them do. In fact, I was shocked when they started doing that. Nobody had ever shown me that kind of respect in the church. Thank you so much, Rabbi Tom, for an amazing message. And I really appreciated your bringing up the issue of self-respect. First of all, Father has shown me that my body is his temple. How I dress, how I speak, how I conduct myself. Even when I'm being a little bit goofy, I pray that it's just to bring a smile to someone's face. And he's really been teaching me a lot. So I don't respect myself when I do things to my bodily temple or put things on it or dress in an immodest way, whatever it might be. And if I don't respect myself, I'm not going to be able to respect others as I should. And the thought that I had is that those who are arrogant, those who do not, when I do not show respect, it's because I'm lacking self-respect. And it may come across as pride and arrogance, but it really is, I'm not respecting myself because I believe that in order to respect myself, I have to recognize who and what I'm created to be in the order that Yahweh set things. And if I have that order out of alignment, I'm going to be all over the place in the way I treat other people.
Amen.
I'd like to elaborate on just for half a minute. Sometimes people are said to have low self-esteem. They don't think very highly of themselves. And that's really, well, there could be a lot of reasons for that. But that's really a lack of respect for yourself. And when you have low self-esteem and you don't respect yourself, then what you're saying is that Yahweh created something defective. I saw a little cartoon. A bunch of kids were following another kid, and they were calling him names, and they said, "You're worthless." And he turned around and looked them in the eye, and he said, "I'm not worthless. God didn't create no junk." Hey? All right. Of course, it's a double negative, I know. But Yahweh does not create junk. And when we have a low opinion of ourselves for no good reason, we're insulting Yahweh. We're saying, hey, you created junk. You created something worthless. And you're just flaunting things, your low self-esteem in his face. So that's all I wanted to say.
Amen. So now your wife would like to speak.
Uh-oh.
Rebbitzin Joanne.
Now I better duck.
Well, listening to all of this, I was thinking really what we need to do is just follow Rabbi Steve.
Right.
And because he's our leader. And how does he address people? When he speaks to his wife, he doesn't say, Julie. He says, Ribbits and Julie. So I think she should be called that. And he just goes, well, he calls Robert, but I've heard him call him Shamash. And I think that people should just get used to this, because it's just like what Nate was saying. If you're in the military, let's say if he was in the military and you was under George Patton, if you was his secretary, could you walk into his office and say, hey, George, I got these reports ready for you? What do you think would happen? I think you'd probably be down on the front line, he'd send you down to the front line. But I think that she should get that respect, and I'll tell you why. because I was at that meeting when Rabbi Steve, he had, now is the time, and we had a meeting. And then he said, okay, we're going to have MTY, and it was formed. And I've been thinking about this for a couple of months. And when let's say if we say Sarah and Abraham, and people start thinking about Sarah, and she was the mother of the nations. Well, I look at Julie now as the mother of MTY. And would you walk in your house and call your mother by her first name? I wouldn't. So I just think that everybody should start giving her that respect.
Amen. I appreciate that.
By the way, I never called Joanne's mother Bernice. That was her name. I always called her Mom Kula, always. Mom Kula.
And actually, most of the time, and he'll tell you this, when I call him up, I say, hi, Rabbi. And he says, hi, Rabbi, back. You know?
I say, hi, Rabbi, back.
Well, I don't think you say it that way, but he's been hanging out with me too much. That's true discipleship right there. Because that's probably what I would say. Okay, so and again, my wife has stepped out of the room because I know there's other programs going on still that she's dealing with, but I want to encourage all of you that my wife and Rabbi Tom's wife are not just our wives. Abba's called them. They have tremendous amounts of knowledge, of wisdom that you can glean from. They understand that they were called with us to do our jobs. And I know that my wife may get some, but I don't see Rebitz and Joanne getting even close to the level of respect she should be getting, okay, as a Rebbitzin. So let's just try and really be aware of that more. But I want you to leave, because I guess we still got some quick ones on there. But before I forget to say it, I want you to leave here today asking yourself this question. Who other than that vertical between Yeshua and the Father, on this planet in flesh, whose authority am I under? Am I under any authority? Because that's a question, because we need to be. Okay, we need to be under authority. And that's, by the way, I've had people come up to me on a regular basis saying, well, what about this so-and-so out there? You know, you need to make them stop doing that, one of the other teachers out there. I'm like, I don't have authority. Unless they submit under voluntarily, I can't do anything, right? And so people come to me and tell me about some other teacher out there that's doing something they don't like, and they want us to make them stop. How? But realize that's the same thing with all of the stuff going on even in this body. Nobody can make any of you stop unless you submit under an authority that you are willing to say, when they say stop, you stop. And some of you that are under the authority here, that we have that relationship, I have told you in no uncertain terms sometimes to knock it off. And when that has been embraced properly, it's fixed things and things have gotten better. But I can't tell you to stop and knock it off if you haven't submitted voluntarily. Okay? And so that's what I want you to do, is I want you to go home and ask yourselves, do I really have any authority that I'm under? Because a lot of you couldn't wait to get out of your parents' house so you could have all that independence and self-authority. Remember, Yeshua had full authority and yet was completely under authority. Ask yourself, what should that look like in my life? How does that play through? Robert?
Yeah. Okay, first I want to say that Rebitz and Joanne had me worried. I thought she was about to tell people what you call me when we're not online. But
what was that?
I thought she was going to tell people what you call me when we're not online.
Oh, you?
Yeah. But no, Pamela.
I don't ever call you anything. I just fire you every other day.
That's it. But Pamela Roten asked. Actually, most of the questions were answered with other people's questions. So, but she asked, "Why is it okay to refer to our Savior by His first name, Yeshua?"
Okay, so what we have to understand is that when you go back far enough, using the first name wasn't more casual. It was actually a higher level of respect. So you go back to the sages, okay, like Rambam or like Hillel, okay, Shammai. They were known by their names as opposed to a title. So actually, when people want to call me Steve, I'm not high enough up for you to call me by my first name, if you understand it from that point of view. Okay? Otherwise, they were always referred to as so-and-so, son of so-and-so, so you knew their lineage. So they kind of knew who you were. Okay? So we have like with Joshua, right? Joshua, son of Nun. So we knew that's the lineage. Okay? And so it's not disrespectful to refer to Messiah Yeshua as Yeshua. Okay? Now, in a lot of places, he's referred to as Messiah Yeshua or Yeshua HaMashiach, however you want to do it. And so we try to put that in there. We're going through cultural changes. We're going through cultural things, and we could just try to embrace in our culture what is respectful. There's a lot of things now in our culture that in other cultures years ago or in different places would never go and count as respectful. Okay? But each culture kind of has their way. I mean, it used to be, I remember, I grew up in the transition between where the children always said yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And the reason I know I was in the transition is because we had one or two children in our class that did that, and we thought it was funny. Because most of us didn't do that. Nobody was making us do that. So we thought, well, that's kind of weird. And the person was always to the teachers, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Where did that all disappear? Now, it's cultural, though. I mean, there's no scripture that says you have to say yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But think about what's behind the thought process of yes, ma'am, yes, sir. That's why when you get into the military, what's the first thing they teach you how to say is, sir, yes, sir. Okay? Because it's about acknowledging that authority and that respect. We as a culture have to figure out how to do that. I mean, when people used to ask me, well, what do you like to be called or how do I have to call? I said, look, I don't care what you call me as long as it's respectful. Okay? I'm not going to impose on you what you should call me. You need to figure out what you should call me. Okay? I'm not the one titling myself. Okay? He has a big problem with it, and he's one of your authorities. You might want to listen to him on his opinion since he has a strong opinion that counts in this room. Okay? And so if you don't want to cause him to have it really mess with his cookies or whatever he said, you don't want to just call me Steve. Okay? But just so you understand. Just so you understand.
By the way, the King James Version has the name of the man who betrayed our Messiah as Judas Iscariot. Iscariot is not a last name. The ISR has it right. It's Yehuda of Kirioth. Kirioth means a city or settlements. In other words, his only name was Yehuda. And Iscariot or Kirioth is not a last name. It means a man of the city. He was a city slicker. That's all it means.
Robert, what else you got? That was it? Okay, Nate, real quick.
Real quick. I work in a profession where I work with doctors and providers, all these master's degree and doctorate levels. And after you work with them for a little while, they get to know you, they see how you work, and they actually start to respect your ability to do the job. And I call them yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, doctor, so on. And they'll be like, oh, Nate, just call me. And I look at them and say, sir, I respect that, but I don't want to cross that boundary of respect because I don't want to lose that respect because then you start elevating yourself. So that I appreciate it, but I still will not.
And my wife has worked for lots of dentists, and when she was working, it didn't matter which one it was, they all had the same name, doctor. It wasn't Dr. So-and-so, it was just always doctor. She just, whenever she called them, just doctor. I mean, they just never referred to, even with the name, it was just that level of the respect. But on top of that, like what you're saying with the person giving you permission even, we were part of a congregation years ago where one of her teachers, when she was in college, she had gone to the church's college, was now part of our congregation. And we weren't that different in age. She was an older student and he was a young teacher. And he said, you don't have to call me Dr. Moore anymore. You can call me whatever his first name was. And she said, nope, can't do it. And so she always referred to him as Dr. whatever. I don't even remember what the last name was, but that's an important thing. But I want you to think about the mindset, though. Okay? Does it affect your mindset when you call somebody by the title or not? Or what's your problem with the title? And is it an arrogance problem, an authority problem? Because after all, if I give him the title, do I need to now respect him because of the title? And you got to figure out your problem with it. If you have one, you got to sort that out. Okay? Because that's our biggest thing is we have an authority problem. And we got to sort that through. And I don't discount the fact that it's been done to you so badly that there's a reason for the problem, but that doesn't change the fact that you still need to fix it. Even though there's a legitimate reason to have the problem. There's no excuse still not to fix it. Okay, Daweed?
Just a quick thing on the tailcoats of what you were saying. The vast majority of the time that I hear people that are talking about call no man rabbi, if they're meeting an Orthodox rabbi, they still call him rabbi. So what's the big deal, in my opinion? Anytime any person has ever been a rabbi, they have earned that position by their studies and by the fact that there's students under them. And whether or not they happen to be my rabbi, they are still a rabbi. And therefore, I term them as a rabbi, even though they may not necessarily be my rabbi.
I appreciate that. I understand. Okay, let's go ahead. And for those of you online who have this whole rabbi problem, there is an in focus called well, I don't know what's it called? Do not be called rabbi, and where I explain the whole rabbi thing, Matthew 23:8 or 9 or whatever verse it is, okay? So you can sort through that. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Do we have, I know the Gadol classes in here. We need to get the Katan classes in here. Okay, one of them's in here. We have all of the Katan kids in here? Well, Sarah Beth's in here, so they're coming, okay. You're not teaching today? Oh, okay. Okay, here they come. All right. See if I can sneak through here somehow. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and close up in prayer. I'm going to have Mr. Steve Sullivan close us in prayer. And so if you'll all rise, we're going to go ahead and close in prayer.
Thank you, Almighty Loving Father, for waking us up to this relationship. Thank you for the rescue and for the growth. Thank you for the realization that you are right here with us and who our brothers and sisters really are. We are fed, led, loved, and nurtured, walking hand in hand with you, lifting up your banner, living in the light of your love, resting in the joy of being near you. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so let me kind of work my way through here. All right, so if you want to be on camera here for the wave goodbye thing, if you have your coin ready. All right, so we're going to... What was that?
Diana said she misses everybody.
Okay. Hi, Diana. Whichever camera I'm waving at. Oh, Adrian. Oh, hey, Adrian. Is home sick? Okay. All right. Where's my son? There it comes. I'll have to kind of sneak in. That's all right. There we go. The young man in black. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is on 3, we're going to go ahead and wave and say Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov to the group out there who's part of our congregation, but they're just not physically in this place, but they're virtually with us. They are just as much a part as anybody else. And we love them and appreciate them very much. So here we go. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Shabbat Shalom! Shavua Tov! We love you. Appreciate you. We're going to get a reputation. Everybody online is going to be, who are those weird guys scratching their faces with coins?